What is up, you guys? We are back. Responsibly Unhinged, 3 weeks in a row. I told you, eat shit, haters. No, I'm just kidding. The person that said that to me wasn't even being mean. They were just like making a joke. I made a joke on the last podcast that the person that told me they listened, and they were like, every week you're like, we're gonna be back for good this time, I swear. And then I leave for like another month again. But I promised I would be back, and I promised I'd be back with guests, but I did tell a slight lie. I said my next 2 guests were comedians. That was a lie. I had a girl have to reschedule, but I was able to replace her with just as fabulous, if not more fabulous, of a guest. I have my friend Justine Benzinger on the podcast today.
I feel called out. I want to be as funny as the comedians.
You are just as funny. You just don't do it on stage. You're pretty funny.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Justine is actually a new comedy goer for my sake and has no shame telling the comedians that she's like, I don't even really like stand-up. She just like tells them to their face. No. And honestly, a lot of them are like, I respect that. And I feel like feel more excited when you laugh then.
That's so true.
Honestly.
I also was like, I was thinking about this. I'm like, I should just take the stand-up class, just to do better on my own podcast.
Dude, so that's actually originally how I got into this. I told the story, like my vindictive story last week about like my ex and how we were going to take classes and how it made me feel about it. But whenever I decided to do it again outside of being vengeful, I was like originally trying to do it for TikTok because I do the podcast and I felt like it would help me with that too.
Yeah.
But I was also like, I'm so wordy and podcast is long form, so I like that. But it was really hard for me to like tell funny stories in like 3 minutes on podcasts or on TikTok. And I was like, oh, most open mics are like 3 to 5 minutes. So you have to condense your material. And so I originally did it I didn't even know if I would perform. I was just like, oh, I'll do it for TikTok. And then I just loved it.
Well, I thought a lot about doing like an improv class just for the public speaking aspect of it and like being on your feet, being quick. Yeah.
Also, I am pumped because Justine is my first guest that showed up with alcohol for the podcast. She's like, this feels like the vibe. So we have our rosé. For those who can't see, they probably heard the clink. I like that. She was like, this felt very responsibly unhinged. But because I'm drinking and the podcast makes me hot anyways, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm probably like pouring sweat for the whole podcast. I like can feel myself sweating and we just started.
This is on, don't worry.
Yeah, I know. I just saw producer Caleb move the AC and I was like, you can probably see the beads of sweat like rolling down my face. I feel like Justine is another person I've had on, like Kara, who also likes the same podcast as me. And we always talk about how like, I was like, Shannon will be recording sometimes and she's just like, I'm like sweating through my heads. And I was like, you know what? I've just eliminated my shame about it. It's fine. It's Texas. It's hot.
I double checked deodorant before I came over.
Yeah, I am hot today. But anyways, that's not the topic. Justine is, like I said, a friend of mine, but she also has her own podcast, Villainera podcast. She is a TikTok influencer, I would say. She's got a pretty good following on there because she's also a fitness coach. I'm gonna let you give yourself a more formal introduction and we can kind of talk about how we got connected.
Yeah, so my name's Justine. On Instagram, I'm JustFitJustine. So I really started there with health and fitness coaching, and that's where Kylie and I like originally connected. And then I've also gone through some very traumatic things in the last year in terms of an abusive relationship, divorce, really having to just start over at 33 and like find myself again. So that's why I started my podcast, Villainera, and that we get to talk a little bit more about, you know, sex, dating, things we'll probably talk on today. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, your podcast byline that you have right now is like sex, drugs, and feminism or something like that, isn't it? I love that. Yeah. Mine is like cheesy. I like thought of it when I first started in my like Instagram bio. It's like life, love, lust, lessons, laughter. And I was just like, all these L's is kind of cool, but it worked.
I feel like you should, that just reminded me, I love the joke that you do instead of like eat, pray, love. What do you say?
Drink, cry, fuck.
Drink, cry, fuck. You should do something with that. Yes.
Yeah. Honestly, what's funny is I said that like kind of off the cuff, and I think it was our intro episode of the podcast. I just like said it in conversation, and then I thought about it when I was writing jokes, and I was like, that was pretty funny, and people really liked it on the podcast. And I was like, if I could rebrand the podcast, that would be kind of like a really funny name for it.
Just be a little byline.
Yeah, it's like, that's been the journey. Which we have talked much about. But yeah, Justine and I actually, this is so funny because I feel like everywhere we go, people are always like, oh, you guys are like besties. And I was like, yeah, we met like 2 months ago.
Has it even been 2 months yet?
I think at least. I don't know. Time is weird.
I know.
When was that?
I mean, maybe just at 2 months. Like,
yeah, it's not much further than that. So, but like you said, we were together on the internet. We knew of each other. We followed each other, but we didn't really talk.
No, we had
But
never,
we
we
didn't,
had been in
interact.
like, we'd been in similar places and we've never actually
Yeah.
talked in person. Yeah.
Yeah, so we had the same business mentorship for a little while. So I think that's how we got connected in the
Mhm.
fitness coaching world. And then we followed each other. But like your stuff literally was never even like in my algorithm or anything. But I also don't spend, especially over the last year as I was like transitioning out of coaching, I don't spend a lot of time scrolling on that account at all.
Yeah.
If I scroll, it's on my like personal page. And so I think I was like just not feeding it anything to show me. And for some reason, it was actually like it was probably late January, I guess. I remember being on the phone with Kara Goss because she is connected with you online as well. And we were like talking about just random shit. And I was like, oh my God, I came across this girl's page yesterday, not even realizing you were through like the business mentorship, anything. And I was like, she had this post about how she feels like she has all these identities and she's trying to run all these different Instagram accounts. And she has like, I was like a page where she like does her personal stuff. And it's like, if she goes out on the weekends and she likes to have some drinks, and then she has like this fitness page identity. And then she has this podcast. And I was like, that's like a sex and dating podcast. And I was like, it was so crazy because I felt like I wrote it. I was like, it's exactly all the stuff I was saying. And how I was like, I hate feeling like I have to like split all my personalities into these different places because I just feel like maybe it's because I feel like not a lot of people are generally super multifaceted. That feels like egotistical to say, but I feel like I used to stress so much about like fitting into a specific box. And as soon as I like let that go and realized that like duality exists, it was very freeing for me. I had that struggle of like being like the bodybuilding business owner, and then if I wanted to go like party or something, I was like, oh, like those two things can't exist. And like obviously to an extent you can't have like the extremes of both things, but realizing that like you can dip your toes in multiple things and like enjoy all of it and it's okay, was really cool for me. And I felt like that's kind of like what your post was talking about, is like I'm just going to start like crossing over all this material. And I was like, I really want to reach out to this girl. I commented on it or something and I was like, that's really resonated with me. And I don't know, we like DM'd. I think you saw that I was in Austin and you thought that I was visiting.
I thought you were visiting.
Yeah, and you were like, oh my God, are you visiting Austin? I live here now or something. And I was like, wait, I live here. And then you were like going out of town, I think for your wisdom teeth or something. And we set up a brunch for when she got back. We went to brunch and then we stayed out day drinking all day until midnight.
She was like, I might have a date later. And I'm like sitting there being like, I have to impress this girl more than some dusty ass boy.
Yeah, which is so funny because while I was driving there, I was literally like, I kind of hope that this girl and I like hit it off and we want to keep going, because I was like, it's so nice out today. I kind of want to go day drinking, but I'm supposed to go on this date and I don't know. And then like we were like finishing and you were like, what else are you doing today? And I was like, I don't know. And you're like, I kind of want a day drink. And I was like, yes, which is so funny because today you showed up and I was like, what do you have going on today?
I know.
And you were like, I have a date. And I was like, oh, cancel it. Let's go day drinking.
I'll just show up to the date a little tipsy.
That's fine.
Yeah. But no, I think with that post too, it's especially when we're in that fitness world and we're running a business from it, it can feel so hard to show that other part of life where you think, oh, you have to live to this certain extent. And also Kylie's kind of transitioning out of it, but in a way of the way we coach, we are on a lot of the time. Like my clients have access to message me. I don't have to respond right away, but they do have access to message me 24/7. And I get in this head of, well, I don't want them to see that I'm out at dinner and I haven't responded to their text message, but at the same time,
it's totally allowed.
Yeah, and it's how I want them to act because they have a corporate job and people are sending them emails and they need to set boundaries. So I think it shows, but it's like finding that balance of, oh, you do want to keep this a little professional, but that's been something there. I just said, okay, I'm going to talk about all the things I want to talk about, and that was a change I've really made in like my fitness content. And then I'm not gonna lie, I restarted using my personal Instagram literally just for dating. Yeah. Because I did not want to match with guys on dating apps and then them see my fitness Instagram where I talk about like pooping. Yeah. And like, which like it should be fine, but I totally understand. Yeah. It just doesn't need to be like, hey, we haven't even gotten on a date yet and you get to hear about like my bowel movements. Right. So I used to have that too. And the other reason was because I was like, I don't know, people have made fun of me because I know that this doesn't really make sense, but like all my shit is out there, right? Like anyone can find me. And I know that comes with like the territory of like,
I don't know. I think this generation is like way less afraid of it than other people. And like, but scary stuff still happens. So like, I get that. But for some reason, when it's like on a dating app, like someone that I know their intention is like, they're seeking something like romantic or sexual, I don't like want them to know everything about me. And because my stuff's out there, like, I know any other weirdo could find me too, but I'm like, if you already like, I think they feel like they have access if they've like matched with you or something. And it like would freak me out because I would just be like, I don't know if I want them. Like then like if they look me up and like they know about my business, like they know everything, like they know, I don't know, they could just get so much more access. And like, that's my professional world. I don't want like, I don't know. It was weird for me too, but I would like, I'm fine with like this stuff all being out here. So I don't know. It makes, I've had guys on like apps ask me for my Instagram, and I'm always like, I like to meet someone in person before I give them my Instagram. I do. Okay. I don't link mine, which is like so weird because all my shit is so public. But for me now, it's because of this podcast and comedy but again, now I'm starting to not care because I was just talking about this last week too, is that was such a thing for me, is like, it's hard for me to find guys who aren't intimidated by that. And I was like scared. And so I wouldn't show them, so I'd be like, oh, they're not gonna want to go on a date with me if they like see that I have like a dating podcast. Yeah. But now if that's the kind of guy they are, I probably don't want to go on a date with them. Yes. So now I'm kind of moving on. I'm not really online dating right now, but if I was, I'm kind of like, sure, maybe I should just link it. Who cares? Well, I've been having these issues. I've had multiple dates where these guys, I'm like, they're just so nice. And my sister's like, Justine, there's nothing wrong with a guy being nice. Producer Caleb laughs because we have this same conversation constantly. like, okay, but there's like being nice, and there's like, are they gonna have issues with me talking about the fact that I just bought a new vibrator on my podcast nice, right? That's a different kind of nice. Yeah. And then my therapist is like, Justine, no one's gonna show you their temper on the first date. And I was like, it'd save a lot of time. Right? Honestly, people should be more crazy on their first dates. I think that would help. But that's why, okay, so that is why you should link and just show and say, hey, this is what I have. That's true. And, you know, we have a mutual contact as well, Alicia, who she is very open about her, and she's shared this. I mean, I'm not speaking on anything she would speak about. She wants to come on my podcast too. I've totally she wants to open. Siri interrupted this podcast. Okay. But she does amazing on OnlyFans. Yeah. And I had asked her, I said, do you feel like that's kind of affected your dating life? And she said, honestly, I'm just open about it because if someone has a problem with it, like, let's have a problem with it right away. We don't even need to go on a date. And I'm like, that's so true. Yeah. I do think there's like a new, I don't even know if it's a new generation, I guess maybe, but there's like a different wave of men coming out too that I appreciate, that are more supportive of those kind of things and just like open to women expressing their sexuality and stuff like that. And to me now, it just feels like if you have an issue with that, not always, I understand some people's reasonings for it, and it depends on how they're using the OnlyFans and things like that. But like, to me, it's like, if that's a problem at that point, it's usually just like an insecurity on their end. Producer Caleb, can you speak to that probably? Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think that we talked a lot on the podcast I had Caleb on about, I forget what the context was, but we were talking about men in general getting like, they like their ego makes them like compare themselves to other men more. I forget the context of why, but I think that that's like similar here too. Like if they're worried about that, it's because they're like so worried that they're gonna find like somebody better than them or whatever else. Yeah. Oh, and that was something I dealt with so much in terms of my long-term relationship was every time I went to the gym, oh, well, you're going to the gym to find jacked dudes. Yeah. See, that's you're going to the gym to check people out. And I was like, the only person I'm checking out at the gym is myself in the mirror. Yeah. I'm like, I've never once been hit on at the gym by any means. And especially with posting pictures, obviously when we're talking about fitness, it does catch people's attention to post a bikini picture, to post a picture in like a crop top where you're showing your abs. There was just so much insecurity behind that and no actual action to be that way. So it's just, hey, this is who I am, and I'm going to be so upfront about who I am before I even like waste anyone's time. Yeah. I think I only ever like had a flirtatious interaction at the gym once in my life, and I initiated it. Like I thought the guy was cute, and I like asked to work in on his set intentionally. And then like he did get my number, but like I approached him. Like it was like most people are like just there doing their thing.
I mean, I would actually love to get hit on at the gym.
Yeah, that's what I mean though. It's like not like, but that's not like what you're there for when you're.
But only if he's hot, right?
Yeah,
that's
only if he's hot.
That's the context.
We were actually, producer Caleb and I were out at this, we were pre-gaming for one of the Champagne Drove show, and this guy was trying to ask me, I don't know if you were in this conversation, but me and this girl, he was asking us for advice about like the Riverwalk here. He's like, if I see a cute girl, you know who this is probably, who like walking on the Riverwalk, and I want to hit on her, like, can I do that? And he was like, what can I say to not be creepy? And me and the girl were both like, here's the thing, like, it's not about what you say, it's whether she perceives you as attractive or not. And like, that sucks, but it's like the same guy could come up to me, because he was like, if I walk up to you and I was like, can I walk with you? I was like, no, that's weird. He was like, and she was like, yeah, but if a really hot guy asked me that, would I probably say yes? Yeah. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, and that's like, that is an asshole thing, but that's where it's like, what were we talking about the other day where you were like, if a man said this, we would like cancel it so fast.
After. But also, I thought about this last night because I went on a date yesterday. And so then I knew he had to go into work. And so I was going to send a little thank you text because I had a good time. I want a second date. And we were talking about if someone texts you too soon after and they seem super eager, it can be a turnoff. But if they're hot. Yeah, if they're hot and you're into them and they text you after, you're like, hell yes, like he texted me.
Yeah, because I was talking about the context of like, is it that we don't like nice guys, or is it that we're like, have been in these toxic relationships where if they show too much attention, we like don't like it because we're used to the chase or like whatever else. And I was like, someone challenged me the other day and was like, even if a hot guy you were interested in texted you like immediately after the date and was like, that was so much fun, would you maybe have a little bit of the ick because he liked you? And then I was like, I don't know. And then, but I do think back to like the origin of Lampshade that I've talked about on here is like, everything about that guy, I liked him on paper and I thought he was attractive, and because he seemed like he was into me, but that was also so fresh out of like some shit. Yeah. And so I was very like, had my guard up, and I knew I was moving. So I feel like that was different, but I do think generally if you like feel like you had a chemistry with someone and they were attractive, like they don't seem overly eager.
We were talking about too, saying, oh, I want a guy who's obsessed with me.
Yeah. I say that and then I get one and I'm like, gross.
No, you don't.
Yeah, we all say that and then we have it and we're like, eh.
No, I think if they're the right amount of obsessed and also
scale. It's like, okay, so men have the hot crazy scale, we have the hot obsessed scale.
Yeah. The right amount of obsessed with also, I like a little bit of teasing.
Yeah.
I like to roast you. Yeah,
I'm
exactly. I like someone who's gonna be a little mean, who's gonna bully me a little bit and take it back. And if you're too nice all the time, like, no, like, I don't know, say something kind of mean to me.
I used to try to be mean.
Should I tell my therapist this?
I used to try to be mean to Whiskey, and he would always be like, I love it when you're feisty. That's all he would say. And I was like, be mean to me back.
I send screenshots of the guys I text to my best guy friend. And he's just like, you're obsessed with negging.
Oh.
Honestly, well, I can't take it.
Same. Like, yeah. I love that. That's actually, I should have known that I was on the route to comedy, because I was like, my love language is roasting. Like,
I think it's because we can dive into this. We could just psychoanalyze ourselves. Ooh. Tough love type of family.
Yeah.
That was kind of the thing we were going to do. And actually
a lot of criticism. Like,
yeah. So I'm laughing about this, but my brother, he lost his front tooth and it fell off the other week. And me and my siblings, my sister, my mom, we're like making fun of him. You should go try out to be this beer rep guy because you look such a hillbilly. Oh my God. And then his girlfriend's like, I feel so bad for him. It's probably really affecting his self-esteem to only have half a tooth. And my family's just roasting him. I was like, that's like a really sweet, like probably healthy way to handle this. And we're just like, no, you look like a redneck.
Yeah. It's like too, like all my friends are like that too. Like our like group chats are so aggressive with each other. Like just like so rude to each other, like in like a loving way. Like, exactly. You know, and obviously you're nice when it counts. Like that's what I feel like I want in a partner too. It's like, you don't want someone who like treats you like shit all the time. Yeah. But like, I need you to have a little bit of that like toughness and everything too. And I think that is hard to find that line, because I can understand why, I guess like, I'll give men empathy for a little bit, is like, it is hard to like find that line. Like I met a new comedian on Wednesday or Thursday at a mic, and I was talking about how I was trying to like dodge this nice guy that keeps trying to hang out with me. And he was like, this is why I don't trust women. And I was like, honestly, that's fair. I was like, we talk a lot of shit about men. And he's like, you're sitting over here telling me all this nice things this man did for you. And you're over here making up lies to not hang out with him. And he was like, what are we supposed to do? He's like, this is why I'm not nice to y'all. You like me more. And I was like, you're right.
Mhm.
And he's like, but then you all complain that we're assholes and talk shit about us all the time. And I was like, honestly, you're right. Like,
okay, but I want you to be an asshole who makes dinner reservations at 7.
yeah.
That's what
But like, I can understand why they're confused. But at the same time, it's like that same concept where they're like, well, we want you to be a freak, but appear like you're not.
Yeah.
Like, it's like the same concept,
Yes.
right? It's like, look like the girl next door, but fuck my brains out. And I'm like, okay, but if I'm gonna fuck your brains out, I'd like to dress that way as well. Thank you.
But that's what I kind of think the opposite. I'm going on these dates with these really nice guys, and I'm like, you know what? Like, this dude is just not gonna like choke the shit out of me later. Like,
sometimes they surprise you.
He's gonna be, I don't know. He's gonna be too nice. So
Yeah.
that's my issue.
Yeah. How do you feel about like, okay, because I'm all about like, we love consent, obviously.
Yes.
But like, sometimes I feel like people have like taken that too far. Have you had like a guy ask you like if he could kiss you or ask you to do things? Like, and how do you feel about that?
No, I have not had to ask a guy if a guy could kiss me since I think like college.
Yeah, I had like an adult man do that to me this last year, and it like killed the whole vibe. And I felt bad because I was like, that was a very polite thing to do. But I was like, if you're not feeling the vibe, like I will kiss you, you probably shouldn't ask. Like, you know what I mean? That's kind of the thing. Like, I don't know. I know it's like a hot topic. I've talked to people about this, but I think sometimes people are like too woke about that. Like, I'm like,
well, I think it's interesting too on the opposite side. I think sometimes you see guys talking shit about girls. Oh, she just laid there like a fish, like while I was fucking her. Dude, if she's just laying there, you're not getting. Yeah, you're not. That's like nonverbal consent, right?
Yeah.
Like if someone's into it or not. And so if you think she's just laying there, you should probably stop having sex with her.
Yeah, she probably is like not having a good time. Yeah.
But actually, I had this experience where I've had really great sexual communication lately. I don't know, just with the guys
you've been like killing your single sex game. Mine has been trash, so I need to let's take some lessons. let's hear it. I listened to your whole podcast last week and I was like, I'm gonna learn something today.
I've been having the best sex of my life.
By the way, Justine's latest episode was literally called "Pick Better People, Have Better Sex," and I was like, well, that feels targeted, so I'm gonna listen to that.
So we had like hooked up earlier in the week, and I can just be unhinged here, right? Okay.
Yeah, we've talked about some wild shit.
He had like slapped my face with his dick a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was like, kind of after, I was like, oh, I thought you would be a little bit more aggressive in that. And he said, oh, are you okay with that? And we had kind of had the consent conversation after.
Yeah.
So then the next time we hooked up, I said, yeah, we can definitely kind of take the slapping to the next level. And he like slapped me a little bit, and then great sex, good time. And then afterwards, we just laid there, and it was the aftercare. He was like, put your head on my chest.
Yeah.
And then he sat there and said, do you feel safe?
Oh yeah, you told me about that.
And I was just like, it was a very nice question to be asked in terms of like just a sexual interaction. Like, hey, you know, this is kind of leaning into kink and like getting into that stuff, and it is pretty rough. And just to ask someone, do you feel safe after you've done something like that? I love that. I don't know, like that'll be in my book forever of nice ways to handle it.
I think aftercare is like not talked about enough. And I think it sounds like people are like, oh, it makes it sound so formal. Like, it doesn't have to be this like checklist of things. It's like literally in layman's terms, people who aren't familiar with that, it's just like how you treat someone and interact after sex. That's literally it. Not just like getting up and leaving, but being, I think it leans towards even just when you do leave, but I would say post-sex, are you cuddling? Are you making sure someone feels like they're not just used? And then I always love to hear from a guy the next day. You know, it doesn't have to be setting up a date, but hey, how's your day going? That always makes me feel a little bit better than to wait 4 days and then you text again. I'm like, I think like aftercare is just in the moment and then a little bit after the moment too. And I think where people get lost on this a lot, especially maybe men who I'm sure are not the audience for this podcast, but maybe I'll just put this clip out so y'all hear it, is like, even if your encounter is casual and agreed upon casual, this still matters. Like, I think people think that if it's just casual sex, that it's fine if they're just like fucking and going. And it's like, if that person agreed, like there are some women who that may be their thing too. Like I had a guy tell me about that. He's like, I plan to like stay and be kind, and she literally was like, all right, I'm leaving. And I was like, yeah, like women have like, there's women with like fucking avoidance issues and bad sex etiquette and stuff too. It's not one-sided.
Yeah.
But we're obviously speaking from our experiences. But this leads me to, I haven't told this story on the podcast yet, and this is a great example of that. It's very short, but I had one of my best which we said we might get into some online stuff, but one of my best online experiences happened to me a couple months ago, and it was partially because of that. Like the aftercare and the before stuff was like so nice. And this guy, like, this is a great example of like how you can have casual sex one-on-one and not be an asshole. Is like, we matched on Tinder or Hinge or whatever, and he was, first of all, off the bat, his first message to me, he was like, hey, just to be totally transparent, I'm like a digital nomad. I don't live here. I travel to different spots, and I'm looking for something just like casual, like just experiences. He's like, if you're interested in the same, would love to meet you.
Yeah.
So it was like straightforward. It didn't seem sleazy. It was like, he's not just like a tourist trying to be a fuckboy. Like he just like travels like for a living, like his lifestyle. And I was like, I haven't really done things like that, but I was kind of in this space of like what I was talking about before. I was like, I'm pretty emotionally unavailable before I even like fully had that realization. I was like, okay, I would like some like affection and interaction, and this feels like a safe way to do that. And so I was like, you know what, sure. He was cute. And we planned it. We texted like a little bit. It wasn't a lot, but we had like some conversational banter. So he like made that effort, then like set up a date. We had like a reservation, a dinner time, went to dinner, and he bought my dinner.
Yeah.
Like we went on this like fully, so he actually is sober. So that's another thing too, for me to have like a casual hookup experience just in my life has not usually been, it's always been like from bars or something, which I don't love. And I'm working on getting out of that, but that's like what it has been for me in my 20s. And then I was in a relationship, right? Yeah. So I was like, cool, this is like going to be something to challenge me as well. And so he was sober. I had like a glass of wine at dinner. And because he's not sober as like recovery, he's literally never drank alcohol in his life, which is cool. His mom was an alcoholic. And I was like, that was super interesting. And also there was like this layer taken down of like, we knew it was like not going to be anything. So there was no walls of like, I'm trying to impress you or like be fake. And so like, we didn't like trauma dump, but we got like really deep. Like we talked about, like we like dove into like politics at dinner, like, and like we're really on the same page with stuff. We talked about like all of our family stuff. Like I said, I learned that stuff about his family. Like we just like really opened up. And so there was like that vulnerability and intimacy feeling too, that was part of probably what he was like fostering, because he does this a lot.
Yeah.
But like it didn't seem sleazy. He was very straightforward with me about like how, because I was like asking him, I wasn't afraid to ask all these questions. I was like, so how does this usually work for you? Like how often do girls respond to this? And like he was super open about it. And like he was like, yeah, actually most of my best girlfriends I've made this way. Like we connect, we do something like this. I keep in touch with them. Like, and I was like, that's so cool. So we like, came back, and I like invited him back. So the vibe was good. And we hooked up, and it was like the most like sexually communicative sex I've probably ever had. Like it was good. But partially just because I was like, I did feel so like safe. Like he took the time, like like I said, even once we got back, we like cuddled and talked more for a while. Like it wasn't just like immediately. And he like, throughout, like he asked me questions. He's like, do you like this? Like, do you want me to do this? Is there anything you want? Like it was super communicative. And then after, he like hung out for like another like 2 hours, and I just like, we cuddled and like just talked more. And he was telling me like, we were talking about this whole thing, and I was like, this was a really great experience. And he was like, yeah, I usually like, if I'm going to do this, I allot like several hours. Cause I'm like, I'm going to want to like stick around after and like whatever else. And he didn't stay the night, which like, one, who's allergic to my cat, but I also don't know if that's just something he doesn't do, like which is totally fine. I like didn't really care if he did, because like I felt so like complete from that experience. And he left, and now we like are Instagram friends. We like DM each other sometimes, but it's like super just like I didn't have any attachment to him. And I feel like part of that was that like I think men are so worried that if they do stuff like that the women will be attached. It's like if you set that standard beforehand, and like make sure all of your actions align, it doesn't mean you have to like be an asshole. Like I think a lot of times they're like, oh well, if I do that stuff, you're gonna get the wrong idea. Like I did not, and of course it helped that I knew he was like literally didn't live here. But like it was so clear and so respectful. I didn't feel at 1 minute like I was just like, oh, this like casual fuck boy. And it was such a positive experience, and I was like, I could just tell how respected and safe I felt. And I think like that's like the blueprint of like, if you want to be having casual sex, there's nothing wrong with that. And that's like a great way to do it.
I think to your point, you have to be super open, because I think guys have this idea where girls are always looking for a relationship, but there are so many women who are in different parts of their life where maybe they don't want a relationship. But if you are just honest about that, because not all girls are always looking for a relationship. They might be in a time of their life where they want to just have something casual, go on casual dates. And ultimately, if you're just open about it, like when I left my divorce, when I got divorced, and then I was in Cincinnati for a little bit, I did go on some dates and I was pretty open about where I was, but I knew I wasn't going to stay in Cincinnati. And I knew I wasn't really ready to get back into a relationship. And I was honest about all of that. And as long as the guy was also honest about what he was looking for, it was totally fine. And then I moved to Austin and I've had like two kind of guys that I met about 2 weeks from each other. And one guy I felt like very much led on in terms of talking about the term relationship and talking about the future and doing all of this stuff. And then the other guy, second date, hey, I'm not looking for a relationship. And I totally got hurt by the guy who was leading it on. And then the guy who's been open about, hey, I'm not looking for a relationship.
Yep.
That's who I'm still having great sex with. And it's like, I have not had that attachment. I do think there's a little bit of a timeline. You know, we're not gonna be able to do this forever before one of us catches feelings.
Correct.
But at this point, it has been 5-ish months of casual sex where it's been cool.
Yeah. And I think that the caveat with that is like the mixed signals of it. And that's like my qualm with like little buddy would use that as his like defense all the time, which he would be like, I told you I wasn't looking for a relationship. And I'd be like, okay, but then don't call me several times a week. Don't like take me to do all these things and like basically like, text me constantly. Like those people where you do those casual things, you want them to still treat you nicely, but there's a difference when you're putting in all of those things. Like, you know what I mean? Like we're like spending all this time together. And then like, that was his like defense when he was like pulled back. And then he was like, well, I don't want to do all this relationship stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but we were already doing all of that. And now it's weird. And then we tried to be friends after that. He was like, would freak out if I got, you know, other people's numbers and stuff. And I'm like, that stuff's confusing. Like you have to pick. You can't like have both. And that's where it's like, I feel like men are always like, oh, well, I told her I didn't want a relationship and she still caught feelings. And I'm like, okay, but are you behaving like you're in a relationship with her? Like you can be polite and respectful and casual and not give those signals. And I do understand it's hard to navigate, but that's for like open communication, which I feel like Caleb and I's episodes was an hour of the 2 hours was us talking about how important communication is for everything. And like, that solves so many problems. Like if you're going along and then like it starts feeling like, hey, I'm getting this vibe, like you're maybe I just want to be clear that we're still on the same page, like doing those check-ins. And it was like, this guy, when I did that, was so stunned. Like I was like, hey, I just want to check in with you on like where you're at and like, are you still wanting the same things? Or like, I was like, because my feelings have shifted a little bit and it feels like yours have. And he was just like, oh, I've never had a conversation like this. It was like really freaked me out. And I was like, okay, well, that's part of the problem, you man child.
Yes. No, yeah, this man is talking to me about, oh, I told my best friend how we would have tall, athletic kids. And
and you can't, first of all, it's not casual to talk about your future children.
I like cook dinner. Oh, I could get used to this. Like, is this what like married life is like? And then talking about, looked up our Enneagrams. This is what our Enneagrams are compatible in relationships. Yeah. And then when I was saying, hey, I think that you should get off Tinder, it was like, what? We're not in a relationship. And I was like, sir, at one point he literally said, I know you've thought about marrying me. And I was just like,
Producer Caleb's like reactions in the background to my friends get stories are always my favorite part. It's like every time he's more and more embarrassed. Yeah, he's like more embarrassed for his own kind literally. Every day.
Come judge us for me.
No, the other day I went over to the guy that I hang out with casually even, and he was talking about how, so we were just having like a wine and we ordered in, and he was just like, I wish I could just do this every night. You know, I'm so over going to the bars, and I think that people at work who are married are more successful because they just get to do this every night. And I'm sitting there like, if you want to order me pad thai and give me wine every night, we can definitely arrange this.
You can do that.
Yeah,
like,
let me know.
You're the barrier here. Like
you're the one still like on the prowl, but
yeah, that was my thing. Like I remember whenever I was like kind of embarrassed, but I was like, I've mentioned this before that like one of the reasons I always liked Lampshade in this whole journey is because I was always very myself and I was never afraid to seem crazy, and he just was like fine with it. And I was like, I remember the app, The Pattern, and I love The Pattern. And I was like, I downloaded it and I was like telling him about it because he knew a lot of his chart stuff when we met. And I think it was probably from his ex too. Any guy that knows all of his astrology stuff is either a red flag or he just dated a girl who was really into it. So like, I don't judge them right away. Like, because I'm like, somebody made you do this.
Yeah.
And so like he knew, but his rising was actually wrong. Whoever told him, we found that out while he was with me. I changed his whole life for a minute. I was like,
That is, your rising is so much more
It is.
important.
I was like, you were wrong. But I like told him, I was like, oh, the pattern, he was like, oh, is it like CoStar? I have that. And I was like, no, it's way more in depth. Like we should get it. And so I got him to download it. And this is while he like lived somewhere else. And I was like, I ran our bond, just so you know. And he was like, no, we were down. He's like, let me see, what's it say? And like, we like compared all the like what it would say our relationship would be like. And I was like, of course I have feelings for you. I ran our pattern bond. Like, what do you mean?
Okay, the pattern called me out.
First of all, it's always right.
It called me out on the way over here. It said, Justine, why do you keep picking people who are not emotionally available? And you stay there. And I said, because it's hot girl summer.
I'm using that clip and they're adding me ad reel.
That's why.
I have been called out by the pattern regularly. It just attacks me. And also though, every time I've ran its dynamic, I made a fake
the pattern
profile.
calls you out for like,
I know. Justine sent me a thing the other day and it was like her pattern. It'll give you like friend
it's on
reminders.
Kylie. It's calling what? Like it's not just calling you out. It's calling your friends
it'll
out.
send you reminders about your friends. Or like check in on your friend and her attachment issues today. It's like cool. Yeah. Mine is like I created. So for those who don't know, with the pattern, you can also create a profile for someone. So if you have their info, so
what time were you born?
So I made one for little buddy when we were talking, and I told him I was like, I want to run your shit on this. So I'm not being crazy behind their back.
No,
being crazy. I'm being crazy to your face, and I was like, I want to see this, and it like everything. It like actually though said all of our stuff was going to be really good, but it said that he might struggle with like emotional maturity. Look what happened. Literally everything that it said would go wrong with Lampshade was what went wrong. But and I remember him being like, this part, the one negative thing it said, all of our stuff was pretty good, but like a one negative thing it said is it was like, he was like, that doesn't sound like me. And I was like, well, a lot of times this pattern thing is like this, the negative stuff is like if you're in an unhealthy place, kind of like how Enneagrams present differently. Yeah. And he was like, oh, I could see that. And he was obviously in an unhealthy place while we were together, like, you know, together, quote unquote. And so I was like, that everything, exactly what it said was happening is like what our biggest communication issue was. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, it's always right. So I always tell people, I was like, I like literally didn't know anything. I didn't even know my big three until like a year ago. I'm not like an astrology diehard, but like, I find it very interesting because a lot of time it be right.
Yeah. So. Honestly, it's something I got into way more after my divorce.
Yeah.
And then so I feel as the months have going on, I've learned more about, okay, now it's Taurus season or this or whatever. So it's really only been since, I would say really July that I've started getting more into it. But we have to hit on the fact that little buddy.
I was going to bring that up.
Little buddy tried to match with me.
This little fucker.
Yes.
Okay, so for context, he does not know you.
No, but I have my Instagram linked and you're in multiple of my Instagram.
Am I?
I think.
Have you posted pictures of us?
The one of us there's like one from Bryce Fine and then from before too.
Oh, I didn't know you posted those.
Yeah.
Oh.
So maybe he didn't look.
Maybe he didn't click it.
Yeah, but
that's crazy. If he did, what a little fucker.
No, and he didn't just like a picture. He sent a message. I don't even remember what he said.
Yeah, he said yes, please. It was to your gym and margaritas. I looked. Of course he would say that. Of course he would say that.
Yeah, and then he says looking for a relationship.
Oh yeah. Let me tell you. Let's look. This idiot. Whenever I met him, we're gonna just call him out because I told him already he was gonna be talked about. So when I matched with this guy who doesn't want a relationship, this is what his bio said, and now still says, long-term, look here for long-term relationship, open to short. The underneath the byline, the part you get to add yourself says, looking for a best friend, partner in crime, travel buddy, my person.
Yeah, still says that as
I read it from your screenshot.
Yeah.
Like, she sends it to me and she's like, I find it so funny that that's what it says.
Oh, yes, please with a smiley.
I'll blur it. We'll blur it.
Yes, please with a smiley.
Producer Caleb will edit that. That's fine. Yes, please with a smiley.
Yeah.
I'm like, and this is funny too. Like towards the end of our thing, he was like, "No, I really am just like shutting myself off from relationships." And I was like, "Oh, really? Are you still on Hinge?" And he was like, "No, I'm not using it." And then I would see him updating his pictures weeks later, and I called him on it because I didn't care anymore. I was like, "I literally saw you add a shirtless selfie to your profile. Like you're clearly still looking to fuck."
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, I'm just doing it for validation. I just want people to message me. And if it makes you feel any better, it's not working. And I was like, well, one, it does make me feel better. It's not a good picture. Two, like, you're a liar. And then like, he fucking removes me from everything. We're not like friends anymore at all. And then she sends me this and she was like, look who tried to match with me on Hinge. And I was like, Oh my God. But I met you like the last week I hung out with him, I think.
You had hung out with him one time since after.
One more time. So like it was at the end. So
Yeah.
there was no crossover of him like knowing who you were.
The next day, literally the next day.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
That's the last time I saw him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he hadn't like heard of you, but this is what's great about girls. Understand, if you fuck a girl over in an area, people will know because you knew who he was. You've never seen him because I showed you his pictures. Like we're thorough. Like I'm like, here's this guy that's ruining my life. Like this is what's happening. And they know that's the only way. Like otherwise, I mean, you probably wouldn't match with him anyways because he doesn't look like your type. But
he's not my type. No.
Unfortunately, he's mine. But
yeah.
I have carbon copies of all the men I date. So yeah, that was crazy though. You said that. But what I said, a missed opportunity was, I was like, I'm so upset that I was like, she should have responded to him and been like, no, thank you, little buddy.
I know, I missed that. We definitely could have had some fun there.
He would have died. He would have just like, he probably would have just unmatched you. Like he's too.
Part of me though, would he even put two and two together?
I guarantee he would.
Guys are dumb.
But he is dumb, but I made such a big deal about it. Like we talked about it before he removed me from Instagram. I put the bit on Instagram and the birthday card I got him, I wrote happy birthday, little buddy in it. So he be knowing.
I'm sure this will not be the last time something like this happens.
Yeah,
both of us
I'm
living
sure.
in Austin, like
me and my roommate,
we're both tall, fit brunettes. I feel
Yeah.
like we're gonna attract similar like vibes.
my last roommate, Meg and I matched with, we both matched with the same guy, and we were like gonna fuck with him and both text him all the same stuff.
I think the good thing is though we do have different types.
We do.
So
yeah.
it's like even if we're like, no.
That's actually a great key in your female friendships. Me and all my female friends all have radically different types of men.
Yeah.
So when you go out, you're never hitting on the same men.
Yes, very true.
I actually was going to tell this story the other week on my solo pod and I forgot. She told me to keep it anonymous. But when I was out with one of my friends the other day, it's not even a bad story. She's just private. But it was so funny. We were like both like on one, just like shooting our shot all week. And these two bartenders, like her and I both have very like stereotyped types. Like we both go after the same type of men constantly, right? And these two guys, I happen to be the only two guys working the bar that we were at. We were sitting there and they literally looked like each of our types working behind the bar. And they were being so fun. Like people kept playing like Celine Dion and stuff and they were like belting it. Like they had like these great personalities. And she's like my friend that doesn't always like shoot her shot. Like, and we were like sitting there and she was just like, you know what? And like he came over and she was like, are you single? And he was like, I'm not. I haven't had a girlfriend for 3 years. I'm very in love. And we were like,
we love
fuck.
that.
But we were like, damn it. And so then the next guy comes over, I was like, you know what? And then she was like, are you single? And he was like, no. And she was like, I was like, well, she was asking for me. Does that change it? And he was like, no. And I was like, damn it. And it was just like it was so disappointing because I was like, how rude that like we got placed in this place where it was literally like, it was almost like it felt like a joke because of how they were like the most exaggerated versions of our types while we were sitting there. And I was like, this is ridiculous.
That's where you just tell the universe, thank you more, please. Like
yeah.
This wasn't my thing, but bring more people. Thank you.
And when a man does that, you're like, I don't feel angry because I'm like, wow, what a good guy. Mm-hmm. Like he could have just like flirted and like got his tips and like, all those things or whatever, you know? And like he didn't. It's the same thing when I shot my shot with the exterminator. I told that story on here.
The exterminator?
We had pest control came to our house and I just don't know why I had like major vibes with this guy. And I was in like a sweatpants and a hoodie. I told this story on the podcast already, so I'll be quick. But I like was like talking about it and my roommates were just like, you have to say something. And I was like, oh, I don't know. And I like ran outside and like asked this guy, I was just like, would it be weird if I got your number? And he was like, absolutely not. And he seemed like really excited. Okay. And so I got his number and then he texted me like hours later. So I feel like he was really having an internal dilemma because he got my number in the first place. Like he could have easily been like, I'm taken. But he like messaged me and he was like, hey, it was so nice meeting you today. I was super flattered and I didn't want to be rude. And I also like was just caught off guard by your confidence, which is super cool, by the way. And he was like, but he's like, I just started seeing someone. It's very new. He like said that. Mm-hmm. And he was like, but I want to kind of see where this goes right now.
Yeah.
But he's like, good luck. And I was like, again, so responsible, good guy. Like he's seeing something through. He's not even in a relationship with her yet. Mm-hmm. He was like, I just started like seeing someone. But all my guy friends were like, the fact that he still got your number and made sure to tell you it's new is he was like, I'm leaving this door open in case this doesn't work out. And I was like, yeah, but still respect that he like did that. Like, you know what I mean? Like all these guys that I've been encountering are like, they would have just like fucking led me on or fucked me or something, you know?
Yeah.
So I was like, good for him. Rat Man, that's what we call him. Rat Man.
That's nice.
It's a terrible name. The exterminator sounds cooler at least.
Well, I think it's so hard in terms of what do you do when you are newly seeing someone.
Yeah, like you're not official.
Yeah. And I was kind of the rat guy where
You were the rat guy.
I was the rat guy where I was kind of seeing someone. I was clearly more into it than the other person was. And someone got my number. I gave them my number. A week later, they asked me for drinks. And I did not respond for a month. But then when I responded, he did respond.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, what do you do there? Because you want to be respectful.
Right.
And I think it's so normalized right now to have a roster and like be doing all of this stuff. And I just don't know how people do it. I don't know how you have a career and like
you went on hella dates this week and I don't know how you did it.
Dude,
how many dates have you been on now this week? You're about to go on your 4th one, I think.
No.
You went when I came over on Friday, you had been on 2 dates already. And you went on one yesterday.
No.
Am I calling you out right now?
That was the week before.
Oh, okay.
So I did 2 dates last week. I had a date Wednesday, a date Saturday. I have a date tonight.
But were they all different?
Oh,
too?
and then I saw this other guy
Right.
multiple times.
The guy you did like casual
yeah.
stuff, yeah.
And then I have 2 dates planned for this upcoming week.
But some of those are follow-up dates, right? Or are they all new?
1 second, hopefully, from the yesterday, which that's the thing too, is like yesterday morning's date was so great.
You always have like one that you're like, you're ready to keep
he's the kind of person where
yeah.
you would clear the roster for, you know?
Yeah.
But I have a tendency to clear the roster too early. So
Same.
I'm trying to chill.
I go on like one date and I like them. I'm like, no roster.
Exactly. I'm like, yep, bye. Like
I like that too. And I've expressed that to people. Like that's my thing. Like we were talking about this on I've had multiple guests who have done like open relationships and things like that. And I'm like, sometimes I think that I wouldn't even care that much. I know I would, I'm possessive, but like I've thought about being like, I could maybe be with someone that's doing that, but I was like, I just by nature don't, because I was like, if I'm into you, it's like, I like have horse blinders on. Like, it's just like, when I was in my long-term relationship until the last like year where I started kind of like opening my eyes to how unhappy I really was, like while I was still like in the fucking love bomb manipulation fog, like I could literally, a man, like the hottest man alive could like walk past me naked and I would like not notice. Like, that's just like how I was. And that's not like even a brag. It's just like, I literally get so, sometimes it's almost to my detriment. I get so fixated and I'm like, but I'm like, I'm so for someone if I like them. And it's like, I've learned to just be like, okay, that's an okay trait to have. But it is like, it doesn't fit into this like new norm. Like I've like been that girl where I've been like, I'm gonna do my hot girl thing and like have a roster. I can't have a roster. First of all, I don't have that kind of planning skills. Like that's a lot of organization. And my memory has been bad ever since my like, apparently it's like CPTSD symptoms as my memory's gotten way worse, not to be like dark, but I used to have a great memory. Like my friends used to like be creeped out. Like I could be like, oh, they would mention a night we went out like 6 years ago and I'd be like, you wore that red blazer. And they would be like, what the fuck? And like, we wouldn't, it was before we had social media and I would remember all that shit, you know? And now like I'll be on a date with somebody and I'll be like, oh, well, like I knew this, or I'll be like, oh, don't you do this? Or like, I forget what you do. And they're like, we've definitely talked about this. Like, I can't keep it straight from me going on a date with a different guy every like month, let alone I would be so confused.
So I'm going on multiple dates, but I will say I'm pretty quick to cut it off. Yeah. And I don't.
You are good about communicating.
Yeah. So, I mean, 2 of the guys who I've gone on dates with, just right away, they asked another date and I just like, hey, I'm feeling friends vibes, because mostly to the point, I don't have time to go on a date where I am like feeling it out. I also think I've been burned in the past where I gave someone I wasn't super into a chance, and now
you end up hurting someone.
Yeah, and I think that I'll say, so I think after divorce, a lot of people can get a little bit like bitter, or they'll be like, oh, I don't want to get married again, or you know, have these kind of negative thoughts, where I swear I love more.
Yeah,
I literally want to, because I feel like I got cheated. I feel like what I had was not a marriage, it was not true love, and it was so manipulative that I'm like, no, I'm not settling. And I'm really looking forward to when I do find someone who I'm like so in love with, and I have a list, I have qualities I'm looking for, like I, you know, and there's balancing it with casual. I'm not crazy or anything. No. But I think I'm straight to the point of, I'm not going to waste someone's time if I know they're not giving me what I want.
Yeah. No, that's really beautiful, actually. I love that. That was really helpful for me to hear, because I think I've fallen into that a little bit after a lot of my experience. I've gotten a little bit bitter. Like I'm still a little bit of like a romantic, like I obviously keep trying to date, but I like have this feeling of like, it's all just shitty. And I think that that's a really great way to look at it, is like, you know, I just haven't, it's like almost that excitement of like, I haven't gotten to have the experience yet. Like I saw a girl on TikTok talking about this the other day, where she was like a way to reframe being single. And she was like, it's still gonna suck, but she's like, the part of like when you actually are falling in love with someone is so fun. And she was like, you get to like, she's like, some people once they're already in love, she's like, that's still a beautiful thing, but you don't get to do that again if it is your forever person.
Yeah.
And so she was like, instead of like being like, oh, it's gonna be so long for that, instead like you can like reframe it as like looking forward to like getting to do that. Like the most fun part is like you get to do that again.
Yeah.
And that's cool, because I have struggled with that too, of feeling like, because we had very similar toxicity in our past relationships, which bonded us right away as well. I was talking to, which by the way, a podcast listeners update, I finally got to meet Jordan in real life. So I feel like that's very important.
Yes.
She was, for those of you who are loyal listeners, she came on, it's Goodwill's other ex that came on, and I know, and we had gotten to meet in person last night. I hung out and it was great. But we were talking about this and I was like, it sucks, because you and I had this conversation about like my Thailand trip and how I was able to look at that, and we just talked about this too. And I was telling her, I was like, I look at so much of that chunk of my life sometimes as like a waste, or like it was like this facade, and like it was true love for me, but it wasn't like I wasn't actually being shown how love should be, and like all that. And I get, it's really easy to be bitter about that, and then just be like, I don't want to open myself up to that. I can't go down another 4-year rabbit hole of someone is ingenuine or is manipulating me, and it's hard not to be afraid that someone's doing that to you again. And I think that's why I pushed lampshade away so hard at first, is I was like, the last time I liked someone this much, like, or like someone fit the bill of what I liked so much, they ruined my life. And so it's like, it was like easier for me to be like, no. And you know, that's why now my therapist says I have disorganized attachment instead of just anxious. Woo! But it's hard.
Yeah. And so I would say growing up, I really didn't see any happy relationships. My parents were divorced. Even I would say my parents' relationships after that for a long time weren't great. And now I finally in my life have some really great men in my life. I think my brother-in-law is just a fantastic husband, like a fantastic partner to my sister.
I lived with them like that one night with you, and they're so cute.
Yeah, my cousin, who I lived with in a little bit for Cincinnati, her husband, the way he treats her is amazing. I actually am like very proud of my brother, who is always like really in really great relationships. And that actually gives me hope in life. Just to see, because I'm like, oh, I'm finally, which is crazy, I'm at 33, I'm finally seeing these healthy, happy, fun relationships. And I'm like, that, I feel like that's kind of what I was missing as a little bit of a role model growing up. And I'm like, that's what I want. Like,
it really does make a difference. Like my grandparents are probably the closest to like a healthy relationship I saw. And even that was like, you know, they had their own dynamic, but there was a lot of dysfunction and chaos surrounding me as well. And then my own relationships would mimic that, right? As psychology goes. And I'd say that helps me a lot too. Like, you know, just hanging out with people like producer Caleb is like a great male influence in my life. Like our friend Josh, great like male partner. Him and Alexa's relationship is great. Like Kara and Kevin are amazing to be around. Like friends I have like that, and seeing that. My friends Morgan and Kelsey, they're each other's wife, and they're like, that's like, you know, it's not the same, because I might have said, well, of course, because they're women, but like they have like probably the most like loving relationship I've ever seen. It's like spending time with people like that. Sometimes you're like, this makes me bitter and sad, but then I'm like, I've done that too, where I've been like, no, this like raises my standard to be around people like this, and be with people who have like been together as long as they have, and they still feel this way and act this way, and it's really refreshing. Or people who just like have so much fun together. Like I still love to see that. Like a lot of our friends that are in relationships have that, and it's really cool.
Well, I think part of the reason I went through with my marriage is I just kind of always assumed that anyone would be settling, that there would never be someone that was like, yes, I'm all in. Because I think for so long growing up, I was never super like, oh, I want to be married. I was never the girl that thought about a wedding or anything like that. So I just kind of assumed, hey, this is it. It's just is what it is kind of thing.
Yeah.
And now, okay, well, I've done that. I've settled. I'm not going to do it again. Like, yeah, it is what it is. I'd rather is what it is be by myself than do that again. So I just know that whatever happens next is going to be like either the most crazy, awesome, true love, or it's the most like crazy, awesome, true love of myself, of, you know, whatever I choose to do in life kind of thing, versus bringing a partner along that is someone who like dims me.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I think going through stuff like this is so hard, but it definitely, each time you go through something like this, it like raises a little bit of your bar of like, okay, here's what I won't tolerate again, at least. And it sucks that like, for me, I've been like my bar had to be so low first for me to be like, you only can go up from here.
That's what happens when you have fucked up dads.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a fun time. Yeah. And like mending a lot of those like childhood wounds for me over this, I've like done a lot of like parental healing work over the last like year or two. And that does make a huge difference, I think, too, at how I'm seeing things. And like I said, I haven't like dived into all of that on here yet. Like the depth of the stuff I'm doing, but it is stuff that I've been working through. And I have seen that reflected in how I interact with other men too. And it is cool to see. But I also think that you had something that I wanted to touch on that you mentioned there as far as seeking people out, and I lost it. But I think that when you're just like, when you meet someone who checks all those boxes, that is going to be like so worth it. Like, I think that that's kind of thing is like, it's so easy to like bend your rules. And I think you can be flexible. Like you shouldn't have like a super rigid list.
Yes.
People have talked about that. It's like, you have to be realistic,
Yes.
but there are some things that should be like your non-negotiables. And I think until you've went through a lot of dating, and that was kind of my issue before, I talked about this last week, is like, I feel like I just started dating at 30, which is like crazy for me because I really did. Like I went, I was single. I was like, obviously I had like, before I said last week, before they were called situationships, I had like situationships and flings and, you know, casual encounters through college and stuff. But like, I didn't go on a date from, oh, we have a guest from high school. My high school boyfriend at 17, I didn't go on a real date until Goodwill took me on a date at 25. And so I was not in a relationship. I didn't go on a date. And then my first one, it was very easy to love bomb someone who's never been on a date. I was like prime candidate. Like anything he did was going to feel incredible. Like, I mean, he did great at his initial stuff, but like that was it. And then I got into a 5-year relationship. So by the time we got out of that, we ended things a few weeks after my 30th birthday. So I just started like doing actual dating where I go on like multiple dates. And like, I feel like that's such an integral part of finding out not just what you like, but what you don't like.
Yes.
And I think once you have that, it's so much easier. And I think if you have only been with like, I think it sounds bad, but almost if you've never been through anything bad, it might be easier to settle because you haven't seen like so clearly like what is a clear like no for you.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I think you said something.
Tonks is joining the podcast right now for anyone who's not watching YouTube. That's fine, because I have a question for you anyways.
Oh yeah?
So what are some of the things like from these experiences that you've put together, if you don't mind sharing, on like your list? Like what are some of your like boxes that they check or like your non-negotiables?
Oh yeah, can I pull up my list?
Yeah, oh, you've got it. I love it.
I got it.
Hell
right.
yeah.
I am a list girl.
Tonks has her head like through the ring light right now, and it's really funny. While she looks this up, I also want listeners to know that we took a brief break that if I edit this cleanly enough, you won't know, but we had to open the next bottle of rosé without a wine opener, and producer Caleb manhandled that shit with a pair of scissors. See Instagram for content.
Okay. So I'm going to start out with the most shallow thing.
Okay. You're allowed to have shallow things. Like I want my men 6 foot or higher. It is what it is.
So I do have, I'm 5'8" and I will get away. I've dated quite a few shorter people.
Which is funny because I'm 5'6" and that's just like really, if you're taller than me, that's my actual limit, but like my preference is that you're 6 foot.
Yeah, no, the last guy I dated for a while, he was 5'9", supposedly. One day he tried to say
that's my problem, is every time I say they're 5'9", they're not.
And I wear platforms every day. I was like, you're not taller than me.
Yeah.
So tall is on my list, but I would say more broadly is that I have dated a lot of guys to the point that I think I've settled for because I didn't have the confidence of thinking, oh, I'm hot or I'm attractive.
Yeah.
And so it's just like someone shows me attention. And then I get in these relationships and I'm like, I am so not physically attracted to you. So like, honestly, physical attraction.
It does matter.
Is so important.
Yeah.
Right now.
I don't think we all like worry about this sounding shallow. Caleb and I talked about this when he was on, and I was like, I'm so tired of having to defend myself for like wanting someone to be tall. Like that's like no one wants to say it, but like most guys are out here like allegedly they're not looking for someone that's like super overweight, like, and that's not even to be like fat shame, but it's like if that's your preference. And there are guys out here who love, like one of my guy friends is gay and he loves overweight men. Like he does. And so like literally he's going to be a guest on here actually in a couple of weeks and he will probably talk about it. Like, so like that's not any kind of shame. Like I'm not saying that makes those people unattractive. Like it's what's attractive to you.
Yes.
And I'm so tired of like people like giving me shit for that. And I think it's because like a lot of men have like ego issues about it. And I'm like, listen, I have been attracted to many short guys. It's just like, it doesn't make me feel good because I'm not a petite girl. Even I'm like 5'6", but I'm also like, even at my fittest, like even when I was small for bodybuilding, it's the smallest I ever was. And my frame is still like wide. Like I'm just not I'm not a tiny girl.
Well, you want to feel like the guy can throw you around.
Yeah, I want to feel feminine. I've fucked some guys that I know I weigh more than, and that's not cool. Like, I don't like it. Like, I just don't like it. Like, so it's about, and I'm tired of apologizing for it. I'm not doing it anymore.
So I'm gonna hit on some of the ones that I feel like I compromised on before. So like career driven, which I dated a guy who very much had a $1 million trust fund he was going to come into. I dated for 4 years and it just never was going to work because I was just like, okay, what are you going to do? And he was just like, well, I'm fine. I'm like, no, you got to go do something.
Jordan and I talked about this last night. Like, men without drive is so ugly.
Yeah. The other thing that's really important to me is they have to be consciously taking care of their health and fitness. I could not date someone again who is gonna guilt me over the fact that I don't eat McDonald's. Like, I don't eat McDonald's. I'm sorry. That's not a date night. Leave me alone.
Yeah. I also think like that's something that has shifted for me over time. Is I used to be so, from being a fitness coach, I used to be really judgy about like what type of fitness, and now I don't care. As long as if you like just are active, I don't care. Like, I don't care if like CrossFit's your thing. I don't care if you're into fucking MMA. Like, I don't care what it is that you do, but like do something. Like, I've dated most guys I date, all but actually, I think Lampshade is one of the only guys I was like into that actually like went to the gym at the time. But I've always dated guys though that when I like them, they're into something, whether it's like they like to bike or hike or anything. It's like you have to be like active in some way. Like, I don't need you to be a bodybuilder, but do something.
Liberal. Okay. That was a big thing when I was in Cincinnati. It was really hard for me dating there.
That's fair.
I am pretty like firm stance. I actually a couple weeks ago I got in a fight with some guys. I'm not political. And I said, well, that's very white male privilege of you to not be political.
Yeah.
But someone who's liberal is really important to me. I also used to be so, I would say in my marriage, we had very different lives. And I think to an extent, you need to have your own passions and drives. But I want someone who wants to be like with me and my best friend. And I never thought I wanted that before. I really thought I was like, no, I'm going to like kind of live my life. I'm super independent.
Yeah.
And I think that was a little bit of a coping mechanism or defensive mechanism, right? I'm going to be really independent and not rely on a man. Now I'm like, no, I want a guy who's like, hey, what are you and your friends doing? Or, hey, let's go do this together. Like, we can go buy, like, grab drinks or something. So that's really important to me.
I like that one too.
Sexually adventurous is something that is like definitely not on my list 5 years ago or whatever, but I'm like, I can't keep, the first time after I had sex after I left my marriage, I just literally laid there and I was just like, I'm too fucking young to have bad sex for the rest of my life.
Hell yeah.
And so that is so important to me. Prioritize the health. I like really like goofy people. I really don't have a type. If you like put everyone I've dated in a lineup, there's no crossover whatsoever. But people who are just like goofy or very like that's like
I like generally like weirdos.
Yeah. And then I think someone to the point of like I don't have a type in terms of how they look, but I think I'm always definitely attracted to someone who just has maybe like something a little different and like they carry themselves well and like for lack of a better term, like a little swag. Like yes, I'm like,
oh yeah. I
mean, yeah, you could literally like the last like 5 like ginger, Indian,
they're all different.
Japanese, Middle Eastern, like all of these things, like totally different, like size, shape, everything. I do. I will say, like, you know, if he's gonna be a white guy, he's gonna have something pretty special about him.
Yeah. Like a ginger.
I love a ginger.
Okay, I have never liked Ginger Man, but the Texan, I don't think I gave him a nickname. I actually may have. I told him a story about him, but I forget what I named him. But he was the guy I told the story about that I had like two. Is it a one night stand if it happens twice? I feel like it's still, because it's like they were like 6 months apart and it was still like a one-time thing.
Yeah,
so whatever, a 2-night stand. He was the first ginger I've been attracted to. Normally I think ginger women are hot.
No, I think there's something that's like people give a bad rap to gingers. So then if they're hot and they're ginger, they're like you're hot. Like,
not us showing your roommate the other night, like all of Shannon Ford's fucking like Instagram picture, like look how hot she is.
He's like, she can get it.
He's like, she can get it. And we're like, yeah, look at this one, look at her lingerie. Like, I was like, hold on, I have it saved.
One of the other big things though that would be really important to me, and I very much compromised this in my last relationship, is someone who is willing to spend time with me and my family. Because I'm super close with my brother and my sister. They live in Austin. We go out all the time. And my ex hated my family. He hated my siblings. Like, I think he really tried to drive a wedge in there. So
Well, that's narcissism also.
yes, 100%. But someone who's just gonna like, because we love to just like have people over, you know, we watch the draft and then we play games and things like that. So I just want someone who just blends in seamlessly, and like that's really important to me.
Yeah.
So
Justine is multifaceted. She's an astrology girly and a sports girly.
I
It's
am
a weird combo.
I'm very much a sports girly.
Yeah,
yes.
like I'm not a sporty hoops girl, but I socially drink to sports. I'm fine with it. Like I'm not anti-sports, but I know nothing. But like I was telling Caleb's like, oh, what did you guys do the other night? And I was like, we mostly just talked. Like we didn't end up watching anything. And I was like, well, she had basketball on, but
I was watching basketball.
Yeah, I was like, I was just there.
No, but I remember what I was gonna say earlier when you were talking about like just like dating and things like that. And I will say one of the last kind of situationships I had where it didn't work out, but it very much just showed me the caliber, where it brought the bar up for a guy in terms of someone who just like, and was, you know, everyone could be great for those first 2 weeks, right? Those first two weeks, even first 2 months. But it brought that caliber up of it reminded me of like, okay, like he was career driven. He took me on dates. Like we communicated a lot about a lot of things. There was obviously things that didn't work out there, but that was just so much above, I would say, a lot of the guys I dated in the past. And it's like, okay, well now the bar is here. Like I'm not going to go back to, sometimes I think you almost need to be reminded, you know, I was only married for a year, but I was in that relationship for 7 years.
Right.
So you kind of question, is there anything else out there?
You're in a similar boat to me then. Like you would have been dating maybe in your very early 20s, but you were in a relationship for most of yours.
Oh yeah. So I was in a 4-year relationship from my
before him.
Yeah.
Oh wow. So yeah, you're similar. I feel like you're just now probably in your prime of dating too then.
Yeah, I had maybe like a 9-month period between the 4-year relationship and when I met my husband that I was dating a little bit, and that was right when dating apps like Tinder was a thing, and like that was kind of it.
Oh yeah, Tinder was like the only one for a while. I feel like well, that was like the old school was like Plenty of Fish. Actually, when I was mentioning healthy relationships, I forgot to shout out Kenny and Sarah goals. But they met on Match.
Oh yeah,
which is crazy. Like that's like an old school one.
Yes. So I had about
successful.
9 months of dating, and then and then I was in a relationship for almost 7 years, and then dating again. So totally, that's why I think my friend today, I'm going on a date later that I'm not that excited for.
That's why you should cancel and go drink with me.
No, but I've already canceled on for like 2 months. So we're gonna go.
Oh yeah, I forgot. He's the rematch guy. Okay.
But my guy friend kind of said, why are you going on these dates? And part of me is, okay, I feel like I need to remember how to date a little bit. I feel like we both probably do this because we podcast. I fucking talk a lot, so sometimes
I have never talked too much in my life.
Sometimes I have a date, I'm like, Justine, ask them a question. Ask something about.
Oh, I have gotten better. Like I feel like I've also referenced Shannon way too much, but I listen to her podcast so much. But her issues she has are exactly me, where I'm like, please don't interrupt them. Please let them speak. Ask them a question. I have to like run this dialogue in my head, because that's the thing is I think people assume that you're like rude and conceited. Like we know that we have this issue, and like we really don't want to be this way. Like I really care what we have to say. It's just like I'm so excited to like get my thought out, and I'm so afraid that if I don't say it, I'll lose it. Like,
oh yes.
Yeah.
My sister will be like, so tell me about them. And I'm like, what did I learn about them?
I know. Somebody asked me the one day about like what actually a guy that I was like seeing for a while. They're like, what does he do for work? And I was like, I don't know. And I was like, fuck. I was like, he knows everything about me though. He had no choice.
I know. The last time I was thinking for a while, my sister was like, describe his sense of humor. I was like, what do you mean?
That's hard to answer though.
Well, she was like, but what kind of movies does he like? Or is it a dad sense of humor? And I was just like, I don't know.
Someone told me
so
once.
then I had questions for the next date. I should ask the guy tonight, what kind of movies do you
Someone
like?
told me once an excellent date question, and if they can't answer it, this is really funny. It was like kind of pretentious, but I liked it. I was like, if they can't answer it, and if you can't answer it when someone asks you like later about them, but they were like, ask them what the last book they read was. And then first of all, hopefully they have an answer. But then also like, if you can't answer that about someone, like it was somebody that was telling me about, it was like an older woman that was telling me this actually, which just made it really cute. Yeah. But she was like talking about this younger guy that we know. We actually all in this room know him. I just won't add him on this. Out him here. I'm sure you all knew when I said that.
The Bible?
The Bible. That could not be his nickname.
It's not, I think that's the last book he's from.
Oh yeah, you knew, but that means you knew. That's his nickname now, the Bible. Yes. So she was asking him about this girl he was dating, and she's like, I asked him, and I was like, what's the last book she read? And he was like, I don't know. And she was like, you don't even like this girl. I was like, that's so funny. She was like an older woman. I thought it was so precious though. I was like, I'm gonna start asking that.
So on my first date yesterday, he just bought the book Dune. I told him the book I was reading. I feel like we're on a good.
I love that.
We're on a good
My answers are like embarrassing, so I'm not gonna judge what book they said. I just want to know that you read. Like this guy, actually, when I was sleeping with Canada, who I still have not revisited to talk about on this podcast, and that feels way too gracious for him. Canada is the best friend of whiskey that I was fucking. Yeah.
All right, I need to. Then who was Lampshade?
Lampshade.
I thought Lampshade was.
No.
Okay.
Lampshade is who we've been talking about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Maybe I'll edit that out. I don't know. No, he knows. Canada is, whenever I was I was a bitch to the nice man.
Yes.
Because I was not ready. To our point earlier, I was not ready to be dating, and I heard someone nice who was looking for a serious relationship, and I wasn't, and pretended I was. Because I said, we're not innocent always, girls. But when I would go stay the night at Canada's house, he always had a book on his nightstand, and it would like change too. So I mean, he was like reading.
Ooh, okay.
And like I would like ask him before. I would like challenge to just be like, because sometimes I'm like, he was such a fuckboy that I was like, is this like a setup? Like he had, because a turn on to me too is like a man that has like a really clean bathroom and clean room. And I'm like a moderately clean person. Like I'm not messy by any means, but I'm not like a clean freak. But like I grew up with like in college, obviously, especially, and like most men's places I've been to are just like disgusting. And so like when a man like takes care of his space, it's so attractive to me. It's like this guy had like plants, and like he has like a cleaner that comes, and like he had a book on his nightstand, and I was like, all right, like, but I would be like, what's that book about? And he would like tell me about it, and I was like, all right, and now I'm turned on.
So no, I just talked about this actually on one of my podcast episodes, but I think that one of the biggest turn-ons is seeing someone be good.
Yes,
at
you did talk about that.
do.
I agree. I was talking to Kayla about this the other day.
Yeah, the casual guy I've been seeing the other night, we talk a lot about his work and stuff, and he came over and he literally had me read a Slack message about how he just closed this huge
You're like,
deal.
oh yeah, tell me about your sales, baby.
Yeah, you hit that quota, like
top quota to
hit
me.
this ass, like let's go.
You close that sale and you close this pussy.
Exactly. I'm like, this is hot. Like I think, and that makes sense with the first thing that I said is someone who's career driven. That I think is such a turn on to just watch someone be good at something, or to your point, be interested in bettering themselves and being intelligent, and
and it doesn't even matter to me what it is. Like if you have a skill, like I always talk about this, I would give Goodwill that man had so many obscure, bizarre talents, because he was like a one-man circus. Like he literally could run the circus. He was so ridiculous. Like I was telling you this the other day, like he used to be like just like insanely good at yo-yoing. And like that was such a dorky thing, but like I loved watching him do it because it was so cool. Like, you could tell they like took time to learn it, and like all that stuff, and he could do all these things, and he could do the same thing with like he would do like the fire sticks, like the fucking throwing fire stuff. He had like the practice ones at home. And we would just like get high, and like he would just like fucking be throwing those sticks, and like it was hot to watch, because I'm like, that's obviously something you've like put time and effort into learning and like developed, and like he was artistic. Like he could play the drums. Like I loved watching him like be. That's part of why I was attracted to him. Like people are always like, what was it here? Because he is odd and he's medium ugly, like most of the men I like. Not all of them. If you're a man listening to this that I've liked, you're not ugly.
You're probably hot.
You're probably hot.
You're the exception.
You're the exception if you're listening. But I like generally have been, like I said, I'm like you, I'm attracted to someone who's like talented and interesting and like goofy and stuff like that. And so if you get to see someone in their element, like it doesn't have to be something like, I feel like people think it's like, oh, it has to be sexy, like rugby or something like that. But it's like, or like wrestling. I don't know. Wrestling hot? Not really. They're like wrestling other men. But like
definitely calling out the rugby guys.
It doesn't,
fucking hot. Yeah.
Honestly, okay. Lampshade also used to play rugby.
Played rugby for 4 years as a
I was gonna say
Kayla played rugby. Okay, rugby guys, let's give it up.
Wait, I literally just started following on TikTok like the American rugby team, and they're literally posting thirst traps with all the guys showing up to the game in like their suits and stuff.
Here's the thing about rugby guys, they're also always hella fun.
You know what? Okay, so we're throwing it real back. I was 17 when I started college, and one of the first guys I met was a rugby player. He was 23, and we just randomly met on the street. I don't even know how I got into the bar, because I literally was not even 18 at the time. And I had this whole thing where I was just like, he's like my uncle's age, which 23 is not old at all now. I'm literally
Right.
like dating people with much bigger age gaps. But he turned into the best all through college, 17 till I was 21. He watched my fish. He
That's not where I thought that was going.
he bought me beer. Like,
Okay.
he was the best.
I want to let it be known that there's a man who lives in this apartment complex that was trying to sleep with me and refused to feed my cat for a few days, and she had someone willing to watch her fish. Okay? What a man.
Yes, yeah, I know.
The fish doesn't even need help. Like, they're fine.
God. You know what? It's funny too, because then my sister's trying to set me up with my brother's boss, who's a rugby player, and I'm like, no, this cannot happen.
No, they're fun. I had one of my best guy friends in college, and he knows this already. He's married now. I love his wife too. If he listens to this podcast sometimes, he knows this isn't weird. Hopefully she's not mad. But like, we were really good friends, but it's one of those situations where we were friends, but I did have a crush on him.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I also would have never violated, like nothing ever happened between us. I told him I had feelings for him, and he was very cool about it, and just like politely was like, I don't feel that way. I really want to be friends. And we stayed friends. Like, we're still friends, everything. I didn't get to go to his wedding because I couldn't travel for it, but like literally we're still friends. But he was a rugby player, and he was my first intro to rugby. Like, I went with him to like a rugby outing, and all the guys were like, even the ones that weren't attractive, I was just attracted to them because they were so fun. Like, they were like, the sport is just like so masculine, and it was like they're so goofy, and they have all these ridiculous rituals they do after. Like, the whole thing is like so ridiculous. It just like tickles my specific kind of weird. Like, I love it.
I think the masculinity thing is a huge thing,
Yeah,
though.
they're like beating the shit out of each other.
Exactly. Like,
Yeah, producer Daniel's like, fuck yeah, we're just building his ego.
and to your point, it's like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but then to meet a guy who's like, oh, I just play video games. It's like,
you can do both. It's
yeah,
fine,
I mean, if you did both, that's
Yeah.
fine. But like someone who's like just into that, where it's like, where you have that really masculine energy and that masculine, like, drive or thing that something else you want to do, I think that plays a big role in it.
Yeah.
In terms of like, this is what I'm into. Yeah.
Yeah, I still get together with that friend when he comes. Actually, I haven't talked about this on the podcast yet, but he came to Nashville they do like Nashville's like a huge rugby tournament every year. It's like Nash Bash or something. And every time when he comes, he hits me up and we like get dinner, or I come hang out with his rugby friends, and it's super cool. This last one he came to is the first one he's come to while I was in my single girl era. And so he was like, come out with me and all my rugby friends. And like, I came out one night and I was like on a little drinking hiatus then. And so I went out and just like hung out with them. But then the next night I was like, all right, I'll go out on Broadway and like drink with you guys. If we're going to Broadway, I was like, Broadway is too much for sobriety. It's just like, I would rather not. We went out with this Canadian rugby team. Yeah. They were another level of insane. But this Thor looking motherfucker. First of all, I got to go to their, like, what is it, rugby court? Caleb will tell me. What is the thing they do after the court?
What do you mean?
They do like some kind of, Lampshade knew what I was talking about. I guess this is like common rugby. Afterwards, they do like.
Oh, you mean where they drink with the other team?
Yeah, and after, and they like do like it's like a punishment / awards ceremony.
Yeah.
And I told him I was there, and he's like, they let you be at that? Like, it's apparently like unheard of, like for girls or outsiders to be there.
It's either called court or common ground.
Okay, yes. So they like call out shit. This is like a very like private rugby thing they do after the games. They bring the other team and they like basically roast each other for anything you did, and then you get punished by like, they'll have to like take all these shots or like all these obscure drinks or like chug gross shit. Like, they make them do all these like punishments for like worst player, or like best player gets to like appoint other people to drink. It's like this like, but they call it like court or something. I might be fucking it up, but I was telling him, he's like, you got to be at one of those. He's like, and I was like, yeah, I stood in the back, and my friend was like, if they see you, they might make you leave. And I was like, I'm just gonna hang out here. And he's like, either one of two things is happening. They haven't noticed, or they think you're hot and they don't care because they're trying to fuck you. And I was like, all right, I'll take it. And the guy that was running it, he literally looked like Thor. He was hot and he was Canadian. And I've had experience with him. He was nice. And like, we went up and we immediately were just like roasting each other so hard. But it was like, there was a vibe. Like, I got his number because he was like, we were like separating in Ubers, and he's like, come to this bar. So he's flirting with me all night. We show up at these bars, he's like dancing with me, all of this stuff. But they were crazy, like all night. One of the guys, it was like his bachelorette thing also, or bachelor as well. Bachelor, it was like they did one whole thing. He like invited me to his wedding. Obviously that wasn't real. But he's like, I'm getting married in Punta Cana. He's like, I'm getting married in Punta Cana. You should come. And I was like, I will absolutely come. Like, and then I was like, this guy can bring me Thor. I'll be your date. Like, and so like we were like, had this whole thing going. Like, we switched shirts at the bar. Like, he had on like this, they dressed as they went out, they always go out as themes because they're so ridiculous. So they all went out dressed as bikers. So they all dressed as like the cyclists. So
Okay,
they had all like
cyclist biker.
yes. But then this one guy,
Not like Harley
he
bikers.
dressed as the Harley biker, and
Okay.
everyone else dressed as the cyclist. So he missed the theme, but it made it so funny. We had this like mesh top, and I was wearing like a girly tank top, and I had like a bandeau under it, thankfully. So like we traded shirts at this bar. So I was wearing like his mesh top over my bandeau, and he was wearing like my tank top. I have a picture of him like holding me, and I was like out all day, and like I had on like athletic shorts and a hat, and we were like out. They like didn't care. Like it was so great. But we went out, and I was like vibing with this man all night. And, like at midnight, he was like, "We should go back to your place," and I was like, "Yeah." But then like we lost his phone, so we had to go look for it, and it was like this whole thing. This was like back like last like fucking February, and we lost it. By the time we get it, we come back out, and I was like, "Okay, now let's go home. Like I'm ready to leave. Like whatever." And he hits me with, I actually like kind of have a girlfriend.
Oh,
and I was like,
God.
oh my God. I was like, you realize an hour ago you asked to come to my apartment. And he was like, I know. And he's like, I'm on vacation. And I was like, you suck.
Yeah.
But
what does that even mean?
that was a sad ending to rugby, guys. But like, it was a really fun night until that point. I went home alone, but it was fine.
I think there's something too, though, like the masculinity of it. I would say that's probably something on my list as well, in terms of like, I just want someone who is gonna be like, hey, let's do this at this time, or like, I'm gonna take control of this. And you know what, as a girl, I just want to show up and look pretty.
For sure.
And honestly, I feel like I know I'm not supposed to say this, but if you take me on a nice date and you're nice and we have dinner together, I'm gonna put out.
Yeah.
That's the girl
that's
I am.
fine.
It's like I want to like have all of that.
I'm tired of pretending it's a problem if you fuck on the first date.
Yeah.
We're old.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
in our 30s.
But I agree. I think we need to stop acting like it's an issue that we sleep together on the first date.
No, I'm fucking 31 years old.
4-year relationship. We slept together. Started with the hookup.
Same.
7-year marriage.
Healthy, but
not 7-year marriage. 7-year relationship. Yeah, terrible relationship. But I did hold off for one night, like the second time we slept together. And then I just think that anyone who has an issue with that, they're gonna have an issue with something else that I'm gonna like. That's not gonna be a make or break for me. It's like you're either going to be. There's going to be something else that breaks.
You're not gonna vibe with my friends very well. I have very sexually open friends, so like
and if you have an issue that we slept together on the first date, then there's just like bigger issues there than the fact that we actually did that. That's not the.
I've started asking some guys I know about this too, like friends, and I've asked like dates about like after the fact. Obviously, of course, up front they're gonna be like, yeah, of course, because they're trying to get laid. But I've asked like men about this and been like, if you sleep with a girl right away, does that like eliminate your chance of considering her for a relationship? And every not piece of shit guy's been like, no.
Yeah.
So like I think we've had this conversation. Yeah, Caleb and I have. But
also, who wants to waste their fucking time?
Yeah, like I mean, sex is important in a relationship, and anyone who's pretending it's not is fooling themselves or unhappy.
Yes.
And so it's like and of course I'm not gonna judge everything off that, because I think sex, we've talked about this. You talked about it on your podcast. I said I was listening to it. I was like, yeah, we talked about it. About how like it is like if you connect with someone and have more of like a chemistry or whatever, sex is better. So like the first time you have sex with someone is often not going to be fire. Yeah. Sometimes it is. I will say that's what fucked me off for that. Little buddy and I had a great first encounter, and so I was like digmatized. But like it's not always that way. It happens, but like usually the more you get to know someone or the more you do connect positively, it's better. Typically, especially as women, I think. Yeah,
I think because then the more you can communicate around that, as long as there's like communication, it's going to get better there. And to your point, especially as women, I am someone who, if I'm having a one night stand, I'm probably not going to come. Like,
that's a clip. These are the experiences we're having.
You guys gotta up your standards.
No, because it's
not our standard. It's what's out there.
No. It has nothing to do with the guy at all.
It's because you don't have a connection.
It's because I am not gonna kind of let myself get to that vulnerable position.
Interesting.
Because I don't really come from vaginal penetration.
Oh yeah,
I only come from clitoral stimulation. And so then
you just got a new toy to try to fix that.
That's it.
You did.
I have. And we're working on it.
Have you heard about that rose toy? I haven't heard a lot about that. Yeah, I haven't heard about that.
We're exploring different things because I've never come from just internal stimulation.
Most women don't.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
not unusual.
No,
it happens, but it's not unusual.
Like 70 to 80% of women need clitoral stimulation.
I can, but it's not like that's less common for me.
Yeah.
It's not all the time.
I will say, ever since I've gotten my nipples pierced, I swear to God, if someone like just I could come from that.
I've heard that from a lot of women.
Yeah.
Like that's like the thing to do.
It's fucking awesome.
Mhm.
But
Where are we? Nipples.
What was the point of this? Oh, so I'm probably not gonna come with a guy for the first time we sleep together because I'm going to need to touch myself.
Yeah.
And then I just feel like I have to be like relaxed and comfortable. And sometimes I feel like you get into like a rush, like, oh, it needs to be quicker, kind of thing. So a lot of times I'm just not gonna come that first time. And doesn't mean I dislike the sex. It's gonna be really great sex. But I think that also like when I come like it's like you know, like you feel like you lose a little control. So I don't necessarily want to do that in front of a guy I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I also think that I do think orgasm is important, but I think that people will forget, and like Hannah Deindorfer talks about this a lot, and she was my second guest I ever had on here for my longtime listeners, that sex isn't only about that either. Like I love the experience of sex. Like I like the intimacy and everything of it. I like foreplay. I like all of those parts of sex. And so like a lot of times guys are so like caught up on it, and then like I understand why and I appreciate that, but they're like upset if you don't orgasm or things like that. And I'm like, I can still have a very pleasurable and enjoyable sexual experience even if that doesn't happen.
Yes.
Like of course I would prefer that to happen. It's great, but like especially if I'm having sex with you long term, I would like for that to be working on. But like you said, it's like one night stands, even if that doesn't happen, it doesn't mean you always rate it off as a bad experience, especially when it's the only time. And I think that that's important to remember too, is like right off the bat though, you can usually get a vibe of like, it's like, sometimes it's like just not, you can tell the chemistry is just not going to be there, and you might not know that until it's sexual.
And then I also think it's nice to figure out if the guy cares, right? If the guy is saying like, oh, I want you to come, and I'm like, hey, that at least is like a green flag.
For sure.
You know, where I'm just like, it's not you, it's a me thing.
If they're struggling with that and then they take care of it another way, green flag.
Yes.
First of all, let's just go with that. Like that is so great. And honestly, that's why as I've gotten older though, sex has gotten better because men have had more experience to like understand that, I think.
I have had so much better sex lately, and it's funny because I am 33 and I've been having a lot of sex with like 26, 27
Wow. Okay.
And
this generation though, they be like on the internet listening to girls bitch about this stuff. I think this is part of it.
Yeah, which is interesting because you think that they were like on the internet watching porn when they were really young and like stuck on that. But I don't know, they've been so much more.
That's what I'm saying. Men our age or like older, they grew up on porn that's very much not about women.
Yeah, but they've been so much more
And now
so
women are vocal about our sex experience.
Hey, I want to
way
please
more
you.
than ever.
And I think honestly, my ex-husband was very like, I'm so masculine, like I'm not gonna go down on you. And I'm like, and then I know
that's the most unmasculine thing I've ever heard.
And then DJ Khaled got so much shit because he said he didn't go on his wife, and the whole fucking internet came for him. I'm like, yeah, you're a piece of shit. The whole internet would come from you. But also, I'll be honest, I didn't want him to go down because it was so bad. I didn't want to have sex in general. I was like, please don't. Like, he was coming in 30 seconds, so if he could just get off me.
For 7 years?
That's all I needed. It wasn't, it's not.
You're a soldier.
That's why I'm on this journey I'm on.
God bless.
Like, that's why I'm finding myself. That's why I'm like, we're having great nights.
I will say he does not fit the bill of normally. I was talking about this with my last guest too, but the more toxic they are, typically the better the sex is. He does not fit that requirement.
No,
but that's been my experience. I will say that me and my homegirl had to talk about that. We're like, we try not to talk about it because it upsets us, but like, Goodwill, one thing he could do, he'd be fucking. but he also literally would disclose to us that he got good at that to make girls like him. Like it was a manipulative tactic, which then took it away. The man had a pussy eating tattoo, so
one of the like best one night stands I did have, I guess the best one night stand I've had was with a guy who's kind of like a kind of famous rapper.
Oh yeah. You told me about this.
So I just feel like he was really good at it. Like, you're fucking doing this a lot. Like, different city every week, different girl. I'm like, you probably know what you're doing.
To be
Like,
fair though,
yeah,
I
yeah.
fucked a drummer and a famous band artist drummer, and he had a micro penis, so.
Okay, but you know what?
But this guy was the lead act.
I brought this up last night. I was like, the most overrated thing is a big dick. I'm sorry.
Okay, I beg to differ though.
No. I think
But-
it's so
But
overrated.
a big dick that doesn't know what they're doing is a problem.
No,
Yeah,
I
would rather have
I just want an average sized penis who knows what they're doing. I'm a little girl. I don't need like, no.
I'm a little
I'm a little girl.
I'm a little girl. I'm a big girl.
Your
so I like a
cervix
big
is only
dick.
like 4 inches deep. That's it.
I've always okay, so like I hate the way this makes me sound. Actually, will I edit this out? I could be too sure. But like I've talked about this. I've heard other girls say this, and I'm like, I talked about this last week for the first time. This guy that I was with in college, I feel like ruined everything for me because his dick was like obnoxious. Like his nickname was Pringles, which I guess will be his one day I'll tell his whole story. And it was his nickname in college. And so that's gonna be his code name on my podcast. That there was a nude of him that went around on campus because he sent it out and it got like leaked. And it was like his dick next to a Pringles can for comparison.
That's crazy.
And he sent 2 girls to the hospital for internal bleeding. And I fucked this man for 3 years.
No.
And then, and I loved it. And then I went on in life, and imagine my surprise when that was not the norm.
No.
And so I was like, I
Keep it away.
have had many of average, medium. If they're good at it, fine. But if some people are like, if it's small and they still work it, it's like, it's just a shock to me because I feel like my vagina's been just like accustomed to a big dick, you know?
The
'Cause
biggest dick
Goodwill,
that I've had, professional,
lampshade, big
no,
dick.
yeah, semi-professional hockey player sends like this picture. I'm like, bro, how many girls have you sent this photo to? Because it was like via Snapchat
Oh, yeah.
only in the Snapchat chat, and yeah, it was like we did doggy for like 3 seconds, and I was like, I can't do this. Like this is terrible. I just want like a nice average.
Do you want to
size
know what
penis.
something Jordan told me this morning that's so true? So I was talking about the micro penis guy and how for a while when he was like hitting it from behind, he wasn't in and he didn't know.
Oh,
He was having a great time
So
and I was not.
Poor guy.
But here's the thing, Jordan goes, that's the easiest way to know if a man's dick is too small. If he's hitting it from behind and it keeps falling out.
Oh.
Like it's not.
So I like the spooning position for that.
That's a good one.
Yeah, because I like to touch myself, so I can
Yeah.
spoon, and then so it's like it keeps falling out, and that's I got issues.
Spooning sex is underrated.
Yeah, because then they can
Actually.
choke you.
Yeah, there's so much
It's
stuff you can do
like
with your hands
yes,
and your tits and
yes,
your
yes,
throat.
yes.
There's a lot. You can be on your clit. There's so much room for activities.
No, yeah. So literally, this is terrible. When my ex-husband and I would spoon, he would just like be in between my thighs, and I would just like let him think that he was down.
That's what I'm saying. That's what happened with micro guy. That's what I mean though. That's what I'm saying.
Just let it go. Oh my god.
Producer Gale is losing it right now. I wish that I had like a camera on the camera.
Unhinged.
He was just fucking your legs.
Yeah,
That's what micro was
Just
doing.
fuck in between my thighs. Yeah.
That's what micro was doing.
Yeah.
And he didn't even know.
Man.
Yeah, it's rough. That's what I'm saying.
Get out of here.
That's what I'm saying. So like there is too small, but I do agree with you. If you know what you're doing, that's why I've had men be intimidated. But actually the guy that lives here was like on one about that. Like he kept asking me weird questions about like my preferences of dicks. And then he was like, well, if I'm like average, I'm just intimidated if you're used to big dicks. And I was like, I'm not like a big dick snob. And like, yeah, like why are you asking me that? Literally this man got matched with me on Tinder and then like within 5 minutes he was like girth or length preference. And I was like, what? Like I don't want to, why are we talking about that?
And you thought he was gonna feed your cat?
Yeah.
He's only interested in one pussy.
Okay, but you're not gonna get this pussy if you don't help my other one. Okay? Pussy for pussy trade. I was more than willing to fuck this man with no interest because he's hot.
He's
I will
good
give him that.
looking
He's
dude.
hot.
Good looking dude.
Producer Caleb's seen him.
Yeah, he is hot.
He's hot.
Yeah,
but he's nothing going on inside. I hope you
Yeah.
listen to this, you stupid cat ignoring asshole. I asked this man if you guys, for reference, this man lives 1 floor above where I'm currently staying. He would have to take an elevator down, same building. Cats also don't need walked. They don't need anything. You need to come and scoop a thing of food into their bowl. That's it. That's it. And I was gonna be out of town. I had no one to feed her. We didn't know what to do. Producer Caleb was leaving at the same time. Didn't know what to do. And I was like, can you please help me out? And he's like, oh, sorry, I'm having surgery on my foot. And then I was like, okay, first of all, are you just not gonna leave your apartment that whole time? Like, I don't want to be a bitch, but there's an elevator. Like, I need
Well,
you
then
to.
he was out.
And then 4 days later, 4 days, which also you could have just been like, I was gone for a week. Like, you could, even if I only needed someone else for 2 days, that still would have helped me. Like, and I saw him at like a fucking horse ranch on Instagram. Like, it was like hilly, uneven ground. He's like playing fetch with a dog. Like, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, no, now I will never sleep with him unless I get desperate. But I will never sleep with him. He is an asshole. That's so stupid. I'm like, Caleb was literally like, if a stranger in the hallway asked me to feed their cat that lived in this building, I would do it.
Yes.
Like, it's an animal. Like, I was like, I'm not even gonna be there. I'm not asking you to do anything with me.
Yeah.
Like, it was so
That
weird.
sucks.
We haven't talked since either. I think he knew he blew it, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, because he wrote back.
And you're like, you're already asking for too much.
I was just like,
He was not going to be worried about if you came or not.
no, definitely not. He kept asking me questions about like, oh, what do you like, and all this stuff, like act like he cared. But I was like, you were like, I could tell he's like as hot as he is. For some reason, he was very insecure about sex. So maybe he does have a small dick.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. He is.
That's why he's got all the like
He's very. He's like a male model, which is probably a red flag. I hate to say that because it feels contradictory to what we're saying about the OnlyFans thing. Like, I wasn't gonna judge him about it. Like, but he also told me he mostly I asked my gay friends about this, my new gay comedian pals, because he told me he's mostly a model for men, like for gay men.
Yeah.
And I was like, what does that mean? And my gay guy friends were like, it means he jerks it on OnlyFans for guys.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And I was like, are you sure? And he's like, no, that's what that means. And then I showed him some of his pictures, and they were like, first of all, he's got the face of a fuckboy, and secondly, yeah, that's 100% what this guy's doing. And I was like, all right, which also doesn't bother me. Get your coin, boy. Like, I don't care. Like, if I can make money being naked on the internet for lesbians, I would do it. I don't care.
That's true.
Oh,
God, I'm
Yeah,
so
like,
tempted.
I don't care. Yeah, I mean, it's hard out here. Do what you gotta do. But I was just like, I don't know, that turned me off. Like, that's just such a simple, like, kind thing to do for anyone. And like, I made it clear with him too that I was like, I'm fine with doing something casual, like when I first met him, but I was like, I'm not in the market to be someone's booty call right now. Like, I'm looking for a little more fulfillment than that. Like, I was like, I'm at a place where I would rather have nothing at all, because like I said, this was also before I had my whole revelation of like, I'm emotionally available and I'm taking time to not date. This was like pre the last few weeks. And I was just like, yeah, I'm fine with that. But I also have needs. I have sexual needs. You're hot. But I was like, I don't want to just be like a 2 a.m. call. Cause like you said, it doesn't make you feel good. Like I could just tell that that was probably already the flag. I could tell he's the kind of guy that wasn't going to put that effort into it. Because the way he also off the bat said he wanted something casual, but he just positioned it so much differently than the other guy.
Yes.
Like, we had interacted. Actually, I didn't just meet him online. Like,
no, I feel like he was
building.
just like, come upstairs. It
Yeah. Well, no, I didn't even live here yet.
No, but I mean, like, that's the kind of vibes he would give off versus the other guy was like D and things like that.
Yeah, and I was kind of like, listen, we met at our gym and we had like good chemistry, which he also said. And so like in person, he was cool. And then when we matched, it's like he just turned into this like animal, which again, that's fine if that's your thing, but like it just was weird. It was like very like aggressive. And I was like, okay, we haven't even hung out once. Like he like asked me if we could be friends with benefits. I was like, that would require us to be friends.
Friends first. Yeah.
Like, otherwise it's just benefits. It's just sex. Like,
sneaky link.
Yeah, it's a sneaky link. It's not FWB at that point. Like, get your terminology right. Welcome to this generation. So yeah.
No, do you want to sell something? I've had enough wine that I'm gonna.
I know. I was like, this is dangerous doing this. We're gonna be on here for like 4 hours.
Yeah,
like,
oh
my god.
Okay, so I'm not gonna lie. So
this guy follows me on Instagram. I should just like put clips of this out. And he's gonna be like, God damn it.
I'm playing fuck girl over here, right? So if you guys have watched the podcast,
the rosé before.
Yeah. Sorry, Caleb. Prepare
He
for what I
loves
just
it.
said. No. So producer Caleb's over here, like open a bottle of wine with scissors, like, oh, let me take my shirt off. I take a Snapchat of it, knowing full well the men who are gonna see this.
Oh, she puts it in her story, like, look where I am. Caleb's being used as anger bait.
Yeah,
That's totally fine.
well, 100% what I did too, because the guy that I'm sleeping with
It's all fine,
casually.
don't worry about it though.
Well,
I'm just gonna do it now.
Please take your shirt off. The guy that I'm sleeping with casually too keeps talking about how I like Asian men.
Oh, you do.
Yeah. So then Caleb just fits perfectly into that. So I'm just like taking a little Snapchat. So I see that he sees this. And then I just looked at his Snapchat story. And then he like just posted like some girl on a boat. Like, yeah, I'm like, you literally just did that. I did that. No, you're fucking with me.
That's so funny. The games we play. See, and I'm like, I'm too old for this, but also it's fun.
We can win this. It's
We
fine.
can win. Kale's like, let me take my
It's
shirt
off
off
the
real quick.
show.
Next intermission, we got this. I can do some like setup for you guys. Like,
Honestly though,
I got you.
yeah. I told him the other week.
I can't bring Caleb anywhere. Everybody's always like, who's your hot friend? I'm like, that's Caleb.
It's fine. But no, I told this guy though, like I was drunk one day. I was like, I am the hotter one. Like, I would never say that, but I'm like, I am the hotter one. Yes, like.
Now I feel that.
No, I will say this is gonna sound so conceited. It's been great lately. Because my ex-husband was so like against me like working out and like he literally like would tell me like, I just wish you had more love handles. I wish you were heavier. And I'm like, that's such a manipulative tactic because he felt like, oh, I shared an email with them where he complained that I got too hot for him. And now it's like I get to like be with these guys who are like, wow, you're so hot, you're so fit. And especially when I was dating in my 20s, I didn't have like the confidence I have now. So it's just like, yeah, I'm a little conceited right now where I'm like, I feel really good. Like, yeah, I'm 33, but I feel like I look really good. And like, I don't know, I'm just like super confident about that lately. And it's been nice, like, to feel that way. Yeah.
I like feel like I wasted the fittest years of my life on my medium ugly psychopath, but it's fine. I'm much happier now, but I also will bring it back at some point. But it's like about how you feel, and I still feel very confident because I feel better and I'm happier.
But I'm not the leanest I've ever been by any means. I'm actually 15 pounds heavier than the leanest I've been, but I'm in a place where I just feel good. Yeah,
that makes a difference too. It's like it's about your energy and like when you're like happy and just like living for you, you also feel more confident in your body. And you talked about that in your podcast too. It's like if you're taking care of yourself, it's not about what you actually look like. And that's the thing is like I'm still generally doing the things to take care of myself. It's like, you know, that's what makes you feel good. It's not really about how you actually look.
No.
Like how you see yourself in the mirror, how you see yourself naked has so much to do with like how you're living your life and like if you're even just like being active at all or like how you're nourishing your body and like how you're talking to yourself and how you're viewing yourself, like that is so much of the whole picture.
Yeah, like treating your body in a good way is not filling it with shit. And if you're filling it with crap, like I don't care what side of intuitive eating or anything you're on, this could be controversial, but your body, no one's body is intuitively saying to fill it with like crap. I think that's like the noise that we hear. And if we really slow down and we really calm down the outside, our body is saying like, we want to feel good and we want to nourish it. We want to eat meals and not starve it and not diet for so long. And those are the things that I think that people aren't listening to from their body. It's like, that's like the true to me intuitive eating is like, your body wants vitamins and minerals. Like your body wants you to eat like an actual grape. It's not just it's
as we're like chugging. No, it's doing all those things though, because then whenever you do stuff like this, it's not detrimental. That's the whole balance. Like when you're intuitively then eating and like following those things to like nourish yourself and like eating those vitamins and minerals, it's also understanding that when intuitively you're like, yeah, I would love to fuck up a burger and some fries, you can do that because that's not what your 24/7 diet looks like. I think that's like the thing people get confused about. Now this is also now a health and fitness podcast, but
I think health and fitness is part of everything.
It does. You talked about that in your last episode. Like you were like this, your Billionaire podcast is not about fitness, but you make those things work together a lot because it is like, it's like you said, like where your hormones are at, all of that stuff balances what you're doing with like your sex life and everything. Yeah.
If you're not taking care of yourself, like that's just number one. It's like mind, body, soul, everything that has to come first. And then that's going to show up in the way, you know, if you're not treating yourself right, why do you think you're going to treat someone else right?
Yeah. I relate to that experience. So my Goodwill never that was one thing, like out of all the toxic shit he did always make me feel like I looked good at every stage. Like he saw me in every stage. Like when we met, I was very average. I was like powerlifting. So I was like athletically built, but I wasn't like lean. And he was like cool with that build. Then I gained a lot of weight in our first year together, that relationship weight stereotype, hardcore. And then I got into bodybuilding about a year into our relationship and lost a ton of weight. And then I got into my like hardcore bodybuilding the last 2 years is when I got like very jacked and shredded and all of that. And he complimented me at every stage, liked it at every stage. And I will give him that. But then once towards the end there, I think he was trying to help me with it, but he just shamed me a lot about like the behaviors. Like it was like kind of what you were saying is where it's like, he hated that I couldn't like eat all the garbage with him and do all of those things. And like, so it was like negative in that way, but it wasn't about my appearance, but he did make a comment to me once when I was like, he was trying to make me feel better, I think, because I was talking about like being the body dysmorphia of regaining weight after my show and stuff like that. And he was like, honestly, having sex with you like this is like not that fun because you're super bony.
Oh,
and I was like,
yeah.
oh, and then he was like, and I was like, I'm kind of just worried about regaining weight. And he was like, well, you were more fun when you were fat. And I was like, oh, like you didn't have to word it like that.
Yeah.
Like it's like I said, it's like I knew his like attempt at it was like positive, and like I did appreciate that he accepted me in all those ways that I looked, but I was also like,
there could have been so many other ways to say that.
I was like, okay. He's like, we like having like something to like hold on to. And I was like, I do understand, like a lot of men actually I have been more hit on. Like in my time that I was single, like coming out of my show, like we broke up like officially 2 months before my show, but we were still like in limbo. And I like was trying, I was still, like you said, I still kind of had blinders on for him, but I was like out trying to be single when I got that guy at the gym's number. I was during that and stuff, but like men hit on me more now than then. So I think there is like, I think the Gen Pop, like outside of fitness, they do like people, and like thick got popular, like, which I love that for us. We love some ass, like all those things. And I understand like a lot of men actually are, I've had a lot of men tell me, which I think it's just as problematic. Like there's someone for everyone, by the way, this isn't it. But I like little buddy had told me this, where he was like, girls that are like super jacked and stuff like that. Like I showed him what I used to look like and he's like, that would have like intimidated me. Or I've had men be like, oh, it makes them insecure about their stuff. So I think it's different.
Well, that's the thing. It makes them insecure.
Yes. And so I think it's like, it's not that any of it's good or bad. It's just like, there's someone for everyone. And so you have to kind of find like where you feel the most comfortable. Like if you are always waiting to like appease someone else, it's not going to work because somebody out there is going to be attractive to whatever look you have.
Yeah.
It's like, as long as you are attracted to yourself, like if you like what yourself looks like, you're going to put off that energy. And when I was shredded, I was in an unhappy relationship. I was driven by my job. I worked 13 hours a day and I made more money than I ever made in my life. And I was miserable. Like, that's why I don't do any of those things anymore. I don't have any ill thing to say about them. That chapter of my life was super important. My friends that are in those chapters still, I support them wholeheartedly. But for me, I put so much of my worth and my personality into those things. And it took away so much of my other personality. Like this part of me now, like me doing like the comedy and this podcast and like how I am, like I repress so much of that of myself to try to fit those other boxes. And so now I feel like I'm truly embracing every aspect of myself. And I think that's like the energy I put out. And I have like way more confidence in dating. I like go hit on guys. I don't wait on them to hit on me. Like, and when I had a 6-pack, I didn't do those things. So it's like, that's the thing is like, take care of yourself, but don't do it for other people. Like however you feel the most happy. Like I'm not the most comfortable in my body right now, but I'm like 75% happy with where I'm at. I like have things I would like to change. I think that's normal for people, especially as women. But like, I'm so like secure in who I am and what I have to offer outside of my body that it makes me more confident in my body. Like when I had that interaction last week, I talked about my podcast, the guy I hooked up with last week. Like I used to, like in college when I was like more overweight and stuff like that, it's like, I used to not have sex with my shirt off. Like I wouldn't want to have the lights off, like all the stuff that we market to women that we're trying to help. Right. And now it's like, I'm like, leave the lights on. I'm gonna get naked immediately. Like, I don't care at all. And like, so I have to put clothes on? Yeah. Like I'm not gonna wear pants while I'm here. What do you mean? Like, and that hasn't changed for me as my body has changed. And that's really cool for me to see. Like, sometimes I have to step back and like, remember that because I am hard on myself, like watching yourself, like compete and then be in a different phase is very hard. And I'm like, okay, but I have this level of like just peace with myself that I never had before.
Yeah. I think the other thing that comes into it too is that I've always dated guys who would never compliment me on that. To the point, because they were insecure. So they would never say I looked good. Even if it was just in a dress or something, they would never say, oh, you look really great. And I actually can think of, I have one of my best friends, her husband, and this is not in a creepy way at all, but her husband is always like, you look great. And I used to date his best friend, and like we would go to a wedding and like her husband would be like, you look beautiful. And my boyfriend would never tell me that. My ex-husband would never tell me this, like you look beautiful now. So I think I probably am like putting it in a little bit more, like now that I'm getting like some words of affirmation, it's like those are things I didn't have before in terms of like a love language kind of sharing. And to your point, I said about 15 pounds heavier than at my leanest, which I never competed, but I basically treated my wedding like a bikini competition. Like I was shredded. I was down to like 1,300 calories, like lots of cardio. I was really, really shredded. And it's like, that was such a way of like, that's not where I can like live my life by any means. And figuring out that my body is still like really awesome in the way that even if it's not the leanest it's ever been.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do we have to change the camera?
Yeah.
This will probably be the last segment, so.
That's good.
Yeah, he totally posted this.
He even said thirst trapping.
Fuck, you're not, whatever.
She
Also,
is cute though.
she's very cute. Also, I just want to say that,
Did you just
actually,
click
we
her?
went, yeah, I did.
We're
I
on
should
our
say she
rosacea
went
right now.
over.
We're like, what's happening?
We went on a threesome.
Oh, you're gonna respond right now to that?
Yeah.
Who said this?
Justine on the dot. She's messaging him this right now. Live unhinged behavior. He posted that thirst trap of this girl, and she said, "Should we have a threesome?"
I know. I said, does she want to come over later?
By the way, this isn't the same guy you're going on a date with. That's what I love about.
No.
This
Who
is
is this dude?
this is the guy that she's been casually seeing.
This is my casual seeing.
The guy that she thinks got mad about you being in her story.
We
This is live responsibly unhinged behavior right now. We are on the podcast live while she's on her bullshit.
we've openly talked about having a threesome.
Well, because Justine and I had this conversation. We're both interested in the fantasy of threesomes, but we don't want it to be in a relationship context. We want it to be with people that are casual.
I want to be the unicorn.
Fair.
Yeah.
Like I want to be involved with someone who I don't have feelings for, because otherwise we're too possessive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm like I'm pretty territorial.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
so if I want to do it, I want all of us to be strangers.
yeah. Or I'll be the third. I'll gladly be the third. And I shared this. I matched with the married couple, and I chickened out. But I think it's really hard to find. It's hard enough to find one person you're into, let alone two couple that you're into both of them.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Caleb on my podcast shared many of his multi-people propositions that he's had. That was that. If you haven't listened to that episode yet, he deep dives. He's had.
I give some pointers on that.
People be approaching Caleb with all the shit. He just gives off that vibe. We haven't been able to determine what energy he's giving off, but I said it's I will fuck you. No, it is.
Oh my god, he said she's in.
She's in.
She's in.
Justine's had her threesome.
Yeah,
I love that this is happening live on the podcast right now.
That's
This is my favorite episode.
That's amazing.
Please.
That's amazing.
Great. Okay, well, I love how all over the place this whole thing was. We have talked about so many things. This is what happens when you drink rosé on the podcast. We have, by the way, finished. How much did you bring? Your half a bottle?
Yeah.
We finished a bottle, half of rosé. So we are killing it right now.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question that I ask
Ooh, love it.
every guest in closing.
That's so fucking
I'm normally nice and I give this question in advance so they have time to think about it, but I completely forgot because we scheduled this so on the whim. So this is Responsibly Unhinged, and we've gone across all of it. We've had some really responsible, great value conversations, I think. We've had a lot of unhinged conversations. So we've already covered it, but I always like to make sure we end on an unhinged note. So I always ask my guests what's the most unhinged thing they have, or the most unhinged story they'd like to share that they've done. Typically it's like for a guy, but like with a sexual encounter, relationship encounter. So we've had things like, whether it's me, I once spent like $400 on hockey game tickets just to hopefully run into a guy. That's unhinged in that sense. I had a guest on here. Caleb talked about, I think, one of his was it the foursome experience? Is that what you talked about?
Yeah.
Talked about that. I had somebody talk about hiding in a closet from their boyfriend's ex-girlfriend because they forced them to do it. I had someone talk about how they had to go to a grocery store with cum on their face as part of a BDSM dare. We've literally spanned the whole gamut. So it can be like a crazy, I've done this to get a guy's attention, or like Taylor Swift mastermind-esque energy.
Okay.
Or it can be like just something unhinged you've done sexually, like whatever unhinged story that you want to share. This is the platform. Especially
I feel like I
since you've been
can't
on
live
your
up to
bullshit.
any of those stories right now. Gosh, I need to go live a more unhinged life. I'm working on it. Well, I did just try to set up a threesome
right now.
So
Via Instagram right
okay,
now.
so my first story that comes to mind is literally I'm 2 weeks in to living in Austin. I've been sleeping with this guy casually that we've mentioned.
It's the same guy. Okay.
I've been sleeping with him. The night before, the Friday before, I went out with my brother, and I met a guy, went home with him, And I literally, it was like the opposite of a date. So we went home, slept with him. The next morning he's driving me home and I'm like, oh my God, I need a mimosa. Then we go on a date.
Oh God.
So yeah, that's not even it. So then we end up going on a date after. So it's like $150 on breakfast. We sleep together again. So that was probably like 2 o'clock, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I go home, I go out with my brother that night. This is where I meet situationship.
Okay.
I meet him that night at this bar.
Anime character?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
All 3 men.
Oh, was that Lucky Duck?
Yes.
Yes, you told me about this.
So first, situationship shows up, taps me on the shoulder. Then his friend's like, oh, I'm gonna tell him to text you. I was like, don't tell him to fucking text me. Like, if bro wants to text me, text me. Then I see the fucking guy from the night before. Then make out with anime character, like in front of my brother, everyone, all in the same platform. And then that night I did leave and go home with the casual guy.
Yeah.
So then 2 days later, I go on a date with the anime characters. Like,
Yeah.
all of them at the same bar, at the same night, didn't know that I then left to go sleep with one. And then, yes, I slept with 3 guys in approximately 3 days.
Yeah.
2 guys within 24 hours. This is the first time I've
Live
been
your
to
truth,
24
follow
hours.
your
Yeah.
heart. As Caleb
Wear
always
condoms.
says. Wear condoms. We should add that to our tagline. Live your truth, follow your heart, and wear condoms.
But yes, that was like, I was just like, Austin's a huge fucking city. Like, why are you
Oh,
doing me
like,
dirty like
dude,
this?
that shit always happens. That's like when I ran into that guy here from the gym and Tinder, and we literally, that day was so funny to me. Like, I'm walking into the apartment building with Caleb and our friend Kenny, and this guy's walking out, and like, I had told Caleb the story of that guy, but like, I literally looked at him and we're like, hey, and then we go in and Caleb's like, how do you know that guy? And I was like, that's the guy I was telling you about. And he's like, he lives here? And I was like, yeah, how fucking ridiculous is that?
Yeah.
Like, that always happens. Like, places like the biggest cities, it's the smallest world.
Well,
It's
the
so
2
bizarre.
guys I'd been seeing for so long, I could literally throw a rock from one of their
Yeah.
apartments to the other. I'm like, oh my God.
They used to live close to where I live.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the new girl that I just made friends with, she lives over there too. I'm like, why does everyone live right here?
No, it's a popular area.
Yeah.
I am sad I moved from there though, because I told Justine before, I was like, hey, next time one of these guys turns you out, let's take a walk the next morning. Like, I love a walk on the river, and I need a friend. Next time you're just like getting your sled on, hit me up in the morning, let's get some coffee and take a walk.
I saw the best meme the other day. It was like, you could never slut shame me because I'm out here trying to be sluttier.
Yeah.
Like, you could be sluttier. Like, let's get
You could
real.
be
Like, that's what we're
sluttier.
trying to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there is no slut shaming. There is just existing. One of my favorite, since I know you're also a T Swift girly, like she has that quote from, I don't think it was maybe it was in Miss Americana, which was an epic fucking doc. Actually, Caleb told me the other day that he's like, so many people have told me about that, I'd be down to watch it. And I was like,
Oh yeah.
I was like, that's the most,
So many
I was
girls
like,
have told you about it.
I was like, honestly though,
So many girls have told you about it.
I literally, like, he said this to me though, he brought it up randomly, and I was like, I almost blocked out that it was real the other day. I was like, Caleb, did you tell me you would watch Miss Americana? He's like, yeah, we did talk about that. But when he said it, I was like, this is the most exciting thing you've ever said in our friendship. Do you realize you have to do this while I'm living?
I haven't
Right?
watched it.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
you would love it, especially your liberal loving heart would really love it. Like it's also just really good.
So
But she has a quote in there. I'm pretty sure it's from that, or it's just another interview. But she was like talking about it, and I feel like this is a great note for your drug, sex, and feminism to just end on. Is she was like, there is no such thing as a slut. There is no such thing as a bitch. There's just a girl who's a boss. There is no such thing as being bossy. There's just a boss. There is no such thing as like all this stuff. And she was just like, all these words they made up for like women doing shit that men do, like don't exist. And like she went on this whole thing, and then she was like, oh, I've shared this reel like every time it pops on my feed. And then she's like, oh, I'm sorry for going on that soft soapbox. And then she's like, I'm not sorry. Why did I just apologize to you? Like, she's like,
Yes.
why do we feel like we have to do that? And she's like, oh, I'm sorry for sharing my opinions about my life and about everything that I've built in my own house that I bought with my money, with the songs I wrote. Like, why the fuck am I apologizing? And I was like, yes, bitch. Like,
Yes. Yes.
I love it. It's like, it like randomly hits like a viral reel. It shows up in my explore page every like 2 months. And I'm always like, reshare.
And as a Midwestern girl, I love to apologize for things.
Oh, I say sorry for everything. That is one thing I will say.
I'm working on it.
Goodwill like broke me of that habit, which is funny because he was always blaming me, but then he would like be so upset with me. He was like, you apologize for everything. He's like, you could literally like, someone could like knock you out on the street and you'd be like, get up and be like, I'm so sorry.
Does that hurt your hand?
Yeah, like, that is me. Like a guy could walk up to me and smack me and I'd be like, is your hand okay? I'm so sorry. I used to be really bad. Like I was borderline Canadian, like about it. And now I'm like better, but I still apologize a lot, but it's better than it used to be. I'll say I'm like that person too that's also like, no worries either way.
Oh,
while
yeah.
I'm worrying
No, I'm really-
a secret third way.
That's actually something I'm really trying to work on. And that's what I'm trying to do, me being honest about like, hey, this, or if someone, I'm like, I'm not gonna say it's okay anymore if it's not okay. Like, or unless I just like, I'm really not gonna get in the conversation and it's done, the relationship's like, if it's done, we won't need to get into it. But I'm not gonna say it's okay if it's not okay. Like,
Yeah.
I've done that and I'm like placating and
Me too.
like, I'm done being death of the fucking cool girl. Like,
Death
we're
of
gonna
the
be
cool girl.
crying.
Yeah, you did that as an
Yes,
episode title.
we're
didn't
gonna
you?
be
I love
wild, we're gonna be crazy, we're gonna be ourselves, and like, it's not okay. It's not fucking okay.
Yeah, I'm too old to be cool.
Yeah.
I've accepted that. I love all the memes that are like, I've just decided to embrace being like unhinged and psychotic. It's just like I'm embracing my feral era.
Yes.
I was like, I don't have time to pretend to be cool anymore. This is just what you get. I'm
Hot
too
and
old.
psychotic.
And actually, earlier I was gonna make this point when you were talking about like how we wish people would be crazy on their first date. Like they've read a lot of psychological stuff where people can only put on a facade.
Yes.
And like fake up to 3 months max. So most people 2 to 3 months is when you'll start to see their real self anyways. So if you're in like situationships or any of those kind of things and you get that 2 or 3 month mark, they start acting different. It's very easy for you to be like thinking it's just like a mood or something because of what you've seen. Chances are they were wearing a mask for the first part. And that's why typically and also it's important. I had a whole episode where I really deep dived into all this. This was my second full episode, but narcissism and love bombing are not, they're not always correlated. They can exist without each other. Everyone who loves bombs you is not a narcissist. All narcissists mostly love bomb, but not all. So they're not mutually exclusive, but like, that's why narcissists who do that are people who love bomb. Typically a love bomb period is about 60 to 90 days. And that's why it's enough time to convince you they are this person. So then when they act out of that character, you excuse it because you're like, this isn't who they are. I've seen who they are. This is just a fluke or a bad behavior or a temper. And then it continues that cycle. So as you go on, like for me being in a longer relationship, it's like they dip in and out of those phases because they can put that mask on and off. But most people can't wear it continuously longer than 3 months.
Well, there's a cycle in emotional abuse of like, okay, all of a sudden they're going to do all these things and like be so great. And that's why you stay, and like done a lot of research there of the cycle of emotional abuse because it's so confusing. And I think it's so, one of the things I always try to hit on is that because people ask me this a lot and they're like, well, was it physically abusive? Right. And there's so many studies that show that emotional abuse is long-term more, if not equal.
They're both terrible.
Yeah, they're both terrible, but I think people downplay emotional abuse. They're like, well, did he hit you, right? And I almost would tell myself that.
It's frustrating.
I said, sometimes I literally thought to myself, I wish he would hit me because then I would have an excuse to leave.
Yep.
And
I felt that.
Yeah, and really it's like the emotional abuse is still just so traumatizing.
Because it really breaks you down and how you like view yourself and like you question your reality. Like it's a very messed up thing. And I actually really appreciate one thing I'll say. I've said this before. Canada has a lot of flaws. He did something he shouldn't have done, but like we had a lot. I like opened up to him a lot about the way that I was like treated in my relationship and like why that was part of why I was like doing the shit I was doing. And we had a conversation once that stuck out to me with his. He lived with a girl roommate, and she was talking about one of her friends that was in a physically abusive relationship, and it's awful. But she was saying it, and she was just saying how she was like, I don't know, like I've had friends like stuff with. Somebody said something about emotional abuse, and she's like, I just feel like those things can't compare. Like someone who's been through something emotionally abusive, like that's not the same as being hit. And I just didn't say anything. I don't know this girl that well. We were all sitting in the kitchen, and I just like bit my tongue, and I was just kind of like, I was trying to be empathetic. I also like I wanted this girl to like me as his roommate. Yeah. And I actually was really like Canada stood up for me. He was kind of like, he like kept looking at me kind of, and like it was like that kind of like glance where someone's like checking on you, and I was like, kind of looked at him, and I was like, what? And he was like, well, I'm just curious how you feel about that. He's like, I know you went through some pretty like emotionally abusive stuff. And he was like, and it seemed like that's really like messed with you long term. And I like really appreciated him like standing up and saying that, because I was just like, yeah, I was like, I can't speak to you because I've never been physically abused. So I can't speak to that. And I was like, but that shit like stays with you and lingers. And then like, you know, I'm sure it does with physical stuff too. But I was like, I feel like you can meet someone else and know pretty quickly based on their temper if they're going to be like physical with you or not. And so I feel like maybe that's, and again, this is not fucking, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a doctor, but like that may be, I feel like an easier thing to like have someone prove you wrong with. Like for me, emotional abuse is like trusting someone to not think they're like manipulating me or full of shit. Like I have a very hard, like I consistently worry that anyone's form of affection is like false, or is like anything is like this facade. And I know physical abuse can do that as well, but like eventually you're going to come to a head where you're going to know. And I was in a relationship for 4 years where I didn't know I was being emotionally abused. Like I got out of that relationship.
No idea.
Like it took months of therapy after for me to realize what was happening. And so that's scary to me. Like obviously you can talk, I'd actually, a lot of people have different thoughts. I love Colleen Hoover. I'm a basic bitch, but her book I just finished is the one about abuse, and she wrote it modeled after her mom's abusive relationship. And she talks about this, physical abuse. But she does touch on the way that it was like he was perfect in every other way, but when he lost his temper, and she also circled it back to the trauma he had as a child that made it happen. So you have that, but like, and people were like, oh, well, you're making that person, that character, like likable. And people say that about like the You show and stuff too. And I'm like, that's the reality though. They are likable. Like that's the whole thing. Like that shit makes me so mad when people get mad about it. And I'm like, you're mad because you've never been through it.
So, so many times lately, which I think it's because I'm meeting a lot of new people. So many people lately have asked me, did your parents like your ex-husband?
My parents love, and like, they thought it was weird, but they liked him.
It was a show.
Yeah.
Like, it was such a show. Like the things that were put on, I'm like, they had no idea. And it's like, that's like that duality of the person. It's like, that's why they get away with it.
My parents said that to me. They were like, well, you guys seem so happy. Like you seemed like you were so happy. And I was like, yeah, I was when you saw me. Like, and it was different. And like, I had that too. Like everyone who met Goodwill was like, I mean, everyone's consensus was like, he's odd, but people generally liked him. I had 2 friends through our whole relationship that were ever like, I'm getting bad vibes. 2 friends out of 5 years. Like producer Caleb met him. It's like, we were broken up already. And it was like, he's weird, but it was like, not like, oh, I think that guy's ruining your life. Like it didn't, you know, like he was a fun person, but you know what you dive down to, exactly what we were talking about earlier off air. Me and Jordan were talking about this too. Everyone liked him, but yet he had no close people in his circle. Everyone who met him from a distance or in short interns, he could schmooze them. They thought he was so charismatic. He like had all that energy. People really liked being around him, but he had no close friends in his life.
Yeah.
And that is now big. That's on my list. You have to, if you don't have friends, it's a red flag for me.
Yes.
Because there's a reason. There's a reason.
Yeah. I think friends, so I'll bring that up. I think that friends is a good one for sure. But it was interesting, kind of a little bit of an issue of my last situationship was like, he had like an issue, I would say it was like, I had just moved here.
Oh yeah.
And like, he was like kind of very like weird about like me, like making friends with his friends. And I was like, I get you just met me, but like, I'm a very independent person. Like, I know I just moved here, but like, I am not the girl who is gonna like just only have your friends.
Yeah.
And it was interesting though too, because like we could just see such a dynamic of like for me though, like my sister and my brother are my friends.
Yeah.
Versus like that was so different. So it's like I think it's like, and also I've lived in 5 different cities in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So my friends are everywhere.
Yeah. You don't have to have close people, but if you don't have any like close relationships, period, like, or like somebody told me once that like if they don't have at least one person in their life that's been close to them for more than 2 years, 3 years, like that's weird to me.
I literally remember, so when me and my best friend now, when I moved in with her and another girl in Chicago, and I remember she like cried to me because she was like, oh, I just like can't keep any good girlfriends, and like I don't know, like they stayed for like a couple of years, and I'm like, oh my god, like I'll be your friend, like I'm so sorry like what you're going through. And then I was like, oh, this is why. Like you're the reason why. Yeah.
Good points.
Well, we were wrapping this up.
And then we went
an hour ago.
This always happens. I do this all. Caleb and I did this too. We like finished the Unhinged thing, and then we went on a whole different pivot and talked about like career stuff for like.
Well, I'm
30 minutes.
hoping that I can come on a second time, and my Unhinged story can be a follow-up to
the threesome I
just planned.
Yes, I would love to hear that. I'm gonna.
Hopefully you can come on the first time sometimes too.
Heyo. For anyone who that mic was too far away from, we're hoping she comes on the first time.
I don't know. I just don't know. That's
honestly though, if you put a girl, that could change everything. We don't know. Yeah.
Or the right dude, you never know.
Yep, you never know.
I don't know.
And I'm gonna come on Bill and Era sometime. So we'll have multiple conversations. We'll do it. But thank you so much, Justine, for being here. This was truly a blast. I feel like I could have.
I feel like we could keep going.
I forgot multiple times during this podcast that we were podcasting, and I just started talking about shit. And I was like, when I edit this, it's gonna be real interesting. But that's doing a podcast with Rose, ladies and gentlemen, and your friends. So
yeah.
I love this. As you can tell, I'm sure it was maybe a shock to everyone else that we've only been friends a short period. So it's so easy. But I love it. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, if you got something out of it, and just laughed at our bullshit, leave me a 5-star rating, leave a review, Spotify, Apple, all those things. We're on YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment, do all the shit. Follow the episodes. Like I said, this is now my 3rd episode in a row, so I'm killing it. I don't know where we'll go from there, to be honest with you, because of all the travel, but this was hopefully taking over from there. And I have some people wanting to do it when I get back. So I have faith that we're going to keep this rolling. Like I said, I'm in closer proximity to Caleb now, so it's a little easier to plan. But we are excited to be back, and I'm so excited that Justine could jump on today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This is so much fun.
See you next time.